Look at us. We are live with our second series on Drop the Needleheads, but the first where people will actually see the faces that are not avatars. It is me, Mike Carpenter, also known as Schmiggy, along with Ben Yates.
That's me. Yow!
This is exciting because we did Led Zeppelin to kind of get our feet wet with this thing, and it went well, and it was really fun to go over those 8 main studio albums. And we were discussing what to do for, our follow-up. And after maybe 3 episodes published, we came across something that was timely, something that is relatively new to me as far as exposure to this band, and something you have more experience with. And right now, the rock music world is totally and justifiably, I would say, infatuated with. And that's Oasis, the triumphant Live 25 tour, which we are seeing at the time of recording in about 3 weeks' time. So Ben Yates, Yahtzee, I'm new to this Oasis thing. I'm excited to get into this. I'm a year deep into the discography, and I've gotten pretty knee deep into it. You, though, I guess the easy question first is your first exposure or the first time that you heard Oasis and it kind of clocked with you.
Yeah. I was 9 years old. Know exactly where I was, what I was doing. I was with my grandparents and my mom on our way to Disney World first. We did 3 days in Disney and 3 days on the Big Red Boat, which was still around. I recall getting on the flight, my first actual plane experience as a kid. And they come around and they give you the headphones, and you kind of plug into, back then, the seat of the plane itself, not there's no video screens or anything. It was just the actual armrest of the plane. And they had kind of a playlist of sorts that I came to well know after this whole trip, because there was 4 flights involved in the to and from. Back then, one of the songs was Champagne Supernova, which was probably my earliest memory of a song that just encapsulated me and captured me in totality. There was a couple other tracks that were played on that same playlist. I wish I could remember the airline that we flew back then, but the other big song back then was Duncan Sheik and
what was the song? Barely Breathing.
Barely Breathing. Yeah. So that was kind of that whole moment in time where a lot of the songs that existed were somewhat deep, I felt anyway, and thought provoking and sort of that essence of the 90s. So from there, though, I pretty much immediately after that trip probably heard Champagne Supernova 8 to 9 times while I was gone traveling, and immediately came back home and made my parents buy me as much Oasis as they could. So from there, obviously kind of took off, and I was nothing that would be considered a massive Oasis fan, but there wasn't any wrong that they could do me. Pretty much any track I heard, owned both of their first 2 CDs, and I just drained them. And then I sort of fell, I'm not going to say out of love with Oasis, but I moved on to other things. And a gentleman who we will come to talk about quite often on this pod, one of our dear friends, Mr. Nathaniel Ren Stein, who resides in Austin, Texas now, but grew up with us in Champaign, Illinois, is probably the largest Oasis fan that I know. And junior year, when we became teammates on the same lacrosse team, we would do things outside of school, off the field of lacrosse, in a social environment. And Nate is unapologetic in how much Oasis he plays. And we sort of buddied up in terms of that scenario. And it was just a consistent soundtrack to after school summers, both 2003, 2004, 2005. So now it's a correlation of certain songs and certain essences of that whole scenario. And then obviously, Mike, I think one of your first moments meeting Nate was at Spectrum, a rock show, talent show of sorts that we performed at Centennial. And I don't want to steal your thunder, because this might be one of your first essences of some Oasis, but that's when we sort of got to
Cast No Shadow, right?
That's right. He did play Cast No Shadow and did a phenomenal job of it. And I don't know what it was about that time, or again, how long I'd sort of been out of the quote unquote Oasis game, but the way he did it and the way he was so enthralled with that style of music and capturing it sort of was just all right, and then it prompted me to go back and give, Oasis another shake. Now, I've talked enough right there because my interest, the way I want to kick this thing off, aside from obviously the checkpoint, if you will, that's coming in a mere, we're under the 20-day mark at this point, or we're just over the 20-day mark of seeing these boys live in Chicago. I think this is incredible. This would be like us kicking off Zeppelin saying, by the way, in 23 days' time, we're going to be seeing Led Zeppelin. You admitted here to kick things off that you were just about a year into the discography, but I want to hear from you, as fans well know, as our good friends well know at this point, and right behind you now that the fans can actually see you, Stones, U2, Bruce Springsteen, Zeppelin, Dave Matthews Band, right? These are things that you have been unapologetically fanning out on for your entire life. But Oasis is a late bloomer, but man, you just kind of rolled your sleeves up and dove in. And like I mentioned to you sometimes, Queens of the Stone Age is really one of the other bands that I can think of in modern day that you were like going to see them live. A couple My Morning Jacket shows, but really Oasis kind of captured you, it seems like. And I would love to hear from you as someone who wasn't really relying on them at a younger age, how you came to listen to them and what your first experience with them was. So
I mean, I didn't have any really relationship with Oasis when I was younger. I mean, Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, and probably Don't Look Back in Anger were on 1071. In heavy rotation, maybe right away, but over the years, they just kind of became those staples that you would hear. So I knew those. I think that what happened with a song like Wonderwall, for example, or even as our friend Kenton's talked about all around the world on the AT&T commercials, is I associated them with England for sure. It was a very British band that never quite broke in America the way they did over there. And I associated them with some commercials and with like earworm vocal melodies. But the songs I all just listed to you are not hard rock songs by any stretch. They're like the anthemic pop-based tunes. Champagne Supernova certainly builds, but they all have a pop sensibility to them, right? So I was indifferent. I was not negative against Oasis. But then last year, around late July into mid-August, the rumors were really starting to circulate that they might reunite. And at first just said Wembley, and that would have been a big enough deal. But I recall driving back from an Incubus show with a few of our friends. We were driving down from Chicago and texting in our group thread, wow, this looks legit. And for some reason, and maybe this sounds like I'm a bit of a Johnny come lately with it or a bandwagoner, but the excitement of that news made me think I should probably dig into this. And when I did, and I just started easily enough with the first two studio albums and Familiar to Millions, not Nebworth 96, which I eventually got into, but Familiar to Millions, because I knew you guys used to play that. And I thought, damn, like this is exciting that a band of this stature and a guitar-based rock band, which is so few and far between in stadium settings nowadays, is about to set the world on fire again. And within a month's time, I think I pretty much got acclimated to the first two albums of songs and a few from Familiar to Millions off of Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. So like Gas Panic. You guys talked about Gas Panic. Fucking love that song.
yeah.
And I thought, oh, damn, these guys are that good. And over the last year, it's not been like every single day I'm listening to Oasis, but they have been the heaviest in my rotation for the last year. And the cool thing is, man, there is a wealth of material. And we're going to get into the B-Sides album, The Master Plan, in a few weeks. But I mean, you can start with the obvious 1-2 punch of Definitely Maybe and What's the Story. But man, I can't wait until we do the Be Here Now episode. I can't wait until we do the Don't Believe the Truth episode, because there's a lot of gems even in those later releases. But we're about to do a heavy hitter, a big heavy hitter to start things off.
Yeah, man, this is acclaimed. I mean, we're coming off Zeppelin, right? So this is like a conversation, but this specific album that we're diving into right now has been put up there in critical acclaim as, I mean, not only one of the best like rookie albums from any band, but is up there in terms of their best So like that's saying something. And then you go track by track through this. We said this on Zeppelin quite often. When was the last time you put an album on from top to bottom? And we're not talking about This Is Oasis or any of the, compilation heavy hitter playlists that you can get now on Spotify or Apple Music. You're going from top to bottom. And it's shocking to me because I owned this album. I remember playing this CD nonstop. And even in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, as I'm going top to bottom, I'm like, God, if I was like our age now and this album dropped, I would be just gobsmacked and saying, how the hell did these guys do this? And what did they have in terms of help? And then you sort of go on the back end of the journey, Noel being a guitar tech and roadie for a band with no thought that Liam was back home starting to front a band. He had no idea that he was even interested in music, right? So like sometimes the stars align and, off you go. And the rest is history that we know of now. The other thing, before we get started, I need to put a quick bookmark in this because you've already hit on the fact we're going to see him. We're going to Soldier Field in a couple weeks, and we're going to start blazing through albums. There's a major difference, and I'm so happy that we have this new format here of our standard because we're separated, and that separation is not only you being in Champaign, me in Louisville, and here physically on the screen. There's a deeper separation of our ideas going into the show at Soldier Field.
Absolutely.
Mike is team Oasis, and I am team Noasis, and that does not mean that I am not a non-fan of Oasis. This is what it means. I have refused to look at any set lists. I have refused to dive in on any YouTube videos, Instagram, Twitter. I've looked at zero content since these boys have had this resurgence, wanting to go in and walk on the field, the hallowed ground of Soldier Field, and have a moment and an experience of what is to be without any kind of spoilers. And I see both sides of it, but I will put my foot down. I'm planting my flag, and to the best of my ability, going all the way up to Showtime and beyond in Soldier Field on August 28th, 2025. I am staying abstinent of anything Oasis just for the sole fact that I don't want any spoilers. Ironically enough, we're kicking off a podcast going into it, so it's going to be very difficult to sort of steer away, especially when they go live in the U.S. And start their tour dates. But Mike, from your perspective, Team Oasis going into the show on the 28th.
Yeah. This is not a spoiler. This thing is a freaking triumph. And what's so cool about it, and why I think it's even more kind of intoxicating now, like just the announcement was exciting enough as a rock music fan that had a limited knowledge of Oasis's discography. But to me, what's just absolutely intoxicating about this reunion and being Team Oasis and watching all the videos and seeing the set list and the pictures and all the anecdotes that are kind of, percolating over across the pond, as it were, to me, this is not just the concert event, the rock concert event of the year, but of the decade. And you could even argue post 2000. Mm-hmm. And that is something that wasn't on my radar a calendar year ago. That sure. A, they would do it, and B, that I would be actually pretty pumped to go see an Oasis show, and C, that we were damn lucky enough to get it thanks to you and Kenton and Kyle, one of our buddies who's not particularly adept at Ticketmaster, each getting tickets so we can all go to this thing. So like there's luck. There's this also, just like this is the synergy I think here. We're about to discuss an album that is of a time and of a place, but it's also timeless. Like it took the right time, the right minds in Noel and Liam and the rest of the guys, and the whole like socio-cultural kind of thing going on in England at the time to make it the breakout album of 1994 and make it still by many rock critics over there the best British album of all time. I mean, some do say that. And now in 2025, it took all these different parts of a formula to come together and make this the perfect tour at the perfect time between two guys that have had a very mercurial relationship. But by all accounts on this tour, it's anything but. I mean, they are, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I did, for full disclosure, send you one picture of the brothers. How did that picture of two brothers that have been through everything they've been through, sharing that joy? I mean, that had to have been like, what, tingle up the spine?
Oh, more than that. I mean, you have to realize, man, between the documentaries, I mean, Supersonic, that this moment that it starts, you see the rift between how they're talking about each other and carrying on. You know, it's like that was part of the essence of the band. It's like, how do they continue to do this when they clearly, quote unquote, hate each other? All the lore beyond it, I mean, I understand it because if you have family, if you have anybody that you're that close to, you understand that dynamic of not only working with someone, but the love that you have for them, and then how that might not be conducive to producing something that they have, right? And when you sent me that picture, I'd given you the green light to do so. You said, let me just send you one thing. And I was like, go for it. And at that point, the initial thought that hit my head was that whatever we're about to see is probably going to be better than anything that they've done, because they were doing it all against the grain. I think they were doing it all in different strokes and different strides, feeling like one had to go one direction, the other had to go the other, solely because it's what was working. And I think through time and how much space and time has passed since all that, I think they put everything to rest and realized that that wasn't the case, that there was this strange positive and negative that was working, but they could both approach it from a different perspective and enjoy it for once. Because I think if you took a straw poll at any given time throughout their career, which we will get to, they always alluded to the fact that they chose this path. They wanted to do it, but there were times whenever one was enjoying it, the other might not, and vice versa. And you would see it on stage. You would see that Liam sitting there and Noel enjoying himself, and Liam gawking at Noel for enjoying it, and then vice
Sitting
versa.
on the drum riser,
Right,
you know, the
just staring. And now it's like, man, I can't even picture a world that I'm going to witness at Soldier Field of both of them simultaneously enjoying each other's company. That's, then we're at Dave and you see those guys lock eyes like Carter and Dave, and it's like, I get a moment of like massive energy when I see two people just enjoying the moment, and I am too. And I'm like, yeah, this is why we're all here. There's no contention. So Oasis without any contention is like the dream, right? It was almost always thought of as impossible. That's why they weren't going to work, and that's why we were never going to get a reunion. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that picture speaks volumes, and it really didn't ruin anything per se for me, aside from the fact of just a completely different perspective wholeheartedly of the band that I've known forever.
I mean, a money grab, a money grab it is not. And it is that sort of genuine interaction that has been all over the tour at every stop. And especially as they've kind of warmed up into it. And you see this, you mentioned just the kind of, you know, unspoken glances that you see bands give each other, but this goes deeper than that. And you're correct in saying that part of that initial Oasis identity was built on that tension between the two of them, but we are finding out we can't have our cake and eat it too. You can still have all the swagger and bluster of Oasis with some legit joy, and that's the amazing thing about the band. The songs themselves are full of joy. The two brothers, throughout their biggest successes, while they did have joy and they did have fun, it's not like they were at their throats, each other's throats all the time, but there was enough of a thing there between them that probably did take away from the overall enjoyment of what was the ride of their lives. So it's so cool that now, 30 years after What's the Story, Morning Glory, 31 years after Definitely Maybe, you know, Oasis Mania has taken over not just UK again, but pretty soon the USA and Canada, Mexico, South America, Australia. I forget if they're doing that. No, they're doing an Asian tour at least. And then next year, maybe some dates as well. So
yeah, the craziest part for me is that you think about bands, and we've seen, Mike, I mean, you and I together have seen 3 Rolling Stone shows. We've been to Bruce. Like, I don't shy away from seeing bands that are quote unquote like older, maybe in their their elderly stage and they're still out there doing it. And I'm not taking anything away from the Rolling Stones and what they're doing, right? Even Aerosmith, before the unfortunate news of this past tour and them not continuing on, I was notched to go see them here in Louisville, and I was pumped about it. But Oasis is like a different moment right now because they are not in their latter years, so to speak. Like we're seeing them still within that pocket, if that makes sense. Some may disagree with me, dude, but like from what I think I'm going to witness and what I know they were far from done and are far from done. And I think they can still deliver a very boisterous and like loud product that is going to mirror what it would have been like in 95, 96, seeing these guys when they were, shooting out of the gates at the top of their game. So, I took away some quotes from this album that I thought were funny in terms of early interviews with Liam and Noel, and some interviewer right when this kind of came out asked the boys together like what they would describe as the feeling of the album, and Liam said it's just songs about being alive, which I think is just spot on.
Yeah, I mean that's accurate. That's accurate.
And then Noel said, Monday morning, when this comes around and our records on the shelves, we will have achieved what we set out to do. And he pauses for a moment and says, after Monday afternoon, we are cursed to be eternally bored. And I sort of thought, damn, like here's the other half, and we will cover this throughout, but their ego does not lack, and it's never lacked. The Gallagher brothers are very, very, very full of everything that they've done. And it's so weird because you look back and it's like they had an idea that this was, that they had a thought that this was going to be exactly what it is and what it has been for them. And I don't think they've ever steered away from that. I'm looking forward to discussing sort of the back end history and lore of all that too. But here we are, man. I'm excited. This is mini series number 2. Perfect timing. Everything is perfect timing when we're going to be discussing Oasis. But even for just right now, we're seeing these guys in 23 days, and I'm ecstatic. So let's rock and roll.
Let's get to it. It's Drop the Needleheads with me, Schmiggy, and him, Yahtzee.
That's me.
Where the bourbon flows, the records spin. And if in this case, for this series, I was thinking about this, Ben, because for Led Zeppelin, it was the takes are as deep as John Bonham's bass drum. For the first episode, I'll try this. The takes are as layered as Noel Gallagher's guitar tracks on their first 3 studio albums, which the guy loved an overdub. You got to admit, the guy loved to overdub that guitar. Just wait until we get to Be Here Now, which is just a guitar army of sorts. But today we're talking about Definitely Maybe, Oasis's seminal, iconic debut album. 1994, it was a pretty awesome time for music all the way around, but grunge reigned supreme. And then here comes this band from England, from Manchester to be specific, with a message that was not dark and grungy and dingy and nihilistic. Instead, it was, as Liam said, about being alive. So let's get to it. The background of this album. Now, here's the thing, Ben. I think what we can do for the sake of brevity is very quickly just go over the formation of Oasis as we understand it. Liam and Noel, they're brothers growing up in Manchester. They had an older brother, Paul, who did you hear the news about him recently?
I've not, no.
He's facing sexual assault charges. So, yeah, he's nowhere to be found at this Oasis tour, understandably. Now, Noel's the middle brother. Liam is the youngest brother. And they grow up in the Gallagher household in Manchester. And their mom, Peggy, a total sweetheart, which you've seen the Supersonic documentaries, you said, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she's a main voice in that. And she seems like your typical sweet Irish, comes over to England lady. But here's the thing. As a Roman Catholic Irish, there's one thing you didn't do back in those days. Well, there's one thing you did and there's one thing you didn't do. What you did do is you procreated, and what you didn't do is ever get divorced no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Their dad was a prick. He beats the shit out of his sons, maybe Liam less so, but they got in plenty of verbal tit for tats. And I think that, Ben, I mentioned that because if we were to kind of figure out why Liam and Noel are such hard-edged guys that run hot in the way that they do, and you read about their childhood, how could they not? Right. How could they not be like that?
Yeah. One of the big takeaways from Supersonic that I thought was so eloquently put, and I don't necessarily think he truly understood the level of what he was saying in the moment, but Noel is describing their relationship and their demeanor, and he describes himself as a cat because cats are assholes, but they're reserved assholes. And he describes Lamb as a dog who is, look at me, play with me, I always need attention. And it's accurate. Like, man, I don't know if you understand how accurate you just painted both of yourselves, because, you know, from the level of everything that you do behind the scenes for producing and writing, you know, these amazing tunes, and your brain when it comes to what has been put down, like it's very almost Jimmy Page-esque of his abilities to formulate these ideas and then put them down in terms of writing and all he's done. And then you've got Lamb, who just, you know, steamrolls his way in and puts his own spin on it. But cat dog, right? And then you see the background of how they came up, and it's also very reminiscent in sorts of probably what they witnessed and what they saw between the relationship with their mom and dad as well. You know, and trying to just figure out a way. So,
I mean, he finally does. Well, I shouldn't say he leaves. In fact, he's out one night, and Peggy packs things up with the boys. She's like, "We're getting out of here." So, I mean, the amount of courage that it took an Irish Catholic woman with 3 sons to get up and go, and then move to a different place in Manchester. And then from that point on, I think the boys were maybe teenagers at this point. They were not living with their dad, so their lives did improve. And Peggy's big Irish family, you know, they found ways to support herself and the 3 sons. Now, the Gallagher brothers were not ones for school. Not that they're not smart individuals. I mean, Liam would probably never do well on like a written test, but the dude has this innate intelligence, even and an incredible sense of humor. And then Noel clearly has, whatever it's the left or right brain, whichever the creative side is, it is off the charts. So they do go their separate ways, though. You mentioned Noel becomes a roadie. The band's name is Inspiral Carpets, which I thought was kind of a cool name for a band.
Yeah.
And it's him and who ended up being Oasis' sound man, Mark Coyle. They are roadies, but Noel said something to the effect that, yeah, you know, we weren't very professional about it. And eventually they just kind of let us go, amicably so. He comes home and he finds out little bro started a band, and he's shocked to find this out.
Yeah. I think that the really cool and funny thing about it is that Noel had mentioned that he thought he'd made it. Like his position, his spot in life as a guitar tech and roadie of sorts for this band was what he dreamed of being, like the pinnacle of somewhat success for what he knew and grew up around, right? It's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm fine with this. Never, ever really thought about taking steps from the direction of, you know, doing his own thing. And he phoned home to check on his mom and asked how things were going. And his mom says, I'm doing Liam's dirties, you know, his dirty laundry. And he says, well, where is he at? And he says he's down rehearsing. And he says, oh, shit, has he picked up the Shakespeare? He's like, I hope he hasn't done that. And it's like, no, he's rehearsing with his rock band. He's like, what? And he had no idea that, you know, that was even a thing, right? So this whole thing takes off. And he does then obviously get let go when he comes home, and again, sort of hears that his brother's been doing this thing, and he goes down and sees him, and he's like, I'll be damned whenever, you know, the kid has somehow picked this up, and he's pretty damn good at it, you know?
I mean, the thing is, what Liam has talked about, and he's even had quotes to this effect, that he is John Lennon reincarnate. And in the mid-'90s, he had a few quotes like this. And I will recommend, I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to get a paperback, which is just like a summer vacation kind of staple. Get a good paperback. And this book is called Getting High, The Adventures of Oasis, which, and you look at the cover, it doesn't look like it looks that legit, but it's written by a guy named Paolo Hewitt, and he was with the band in 94, 95. So this is the thick of it. And Liam did fancy himself John Lennon reincarnate. And when you listen to his vocal stylings, that really comes into clear view. But it just, what I love about that story is that Noel being off on international tours. I mean, Inspiral Carpets were all over the place. I think they had a tour in Japan, or something like that. And then he finds out, okay, I'm out of that. I'm going to come home. I'm going to be on the dole, as they say over in England. And oh, little bros in a band, and it's like, boom, light bulb. I maybe I should. Well, actually, I should retract that. He doesn't think anything of it at first. He goes to check out the earliest version of Oasis. And do you know this story about how he basically, I don't want to say invites himself into the band, but kind of they quickly come to an agreement as how it's going to work.
Yeah, no. I think over a matter of just a couple weeks after he'd seen them, two conflicting stories, obviously. From Liam's perspective, he was down on his knees and he swears that he has a picture to prove it, which is obviously just a Liam joke, but that Noel was begging to be in the band. But from Noel's perspective,
Yeah,
no, I'm not familiar.
I mean, the funny thing about it is Noel says, and I think Liam agrees to this story, is that essentially some stipulations were made. I will join your band if, and one of those is I'm chief songwriter, and in fact, Noel's nickname was Chief over the first few years, and maybe that stuck with him through 2009. But his nickname was Chief, and when you were writing songs like that, it's easy to kind of grab that title and hold on to it. So he joins the band in the early 90s, and they're rehearsing nonstop. I mean, they really were very hard workers. And then all of a sudden, this glut of incredible songs starts spilling out of Noel. And, you know, when I mentioned right place, right time, you know, I don't know if it's the concept of like serendipity, just like everything coalescing at the exact right time and moment. But it's like this deluge of classic songs just comes out of him. And some of them took longer to develop. Others, like we'll talk Supersonic here in a bit, took 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what it's just part of that lore that is that build around that band. And by the time Definitely Maybe comes out, people are like, these guys are the next Beatles.
Yeah. To be more precise about the timing it took to write Supersonic, Mr. Noel is quoted in saying, I don't know, man, I guess was written in the time it took 6 blokes to eat a Chinese meal, because what they'd been doing, and we'll talk about this as well, but they were actually
Bring It On Down.
Bring It On Down
was to be their first single.
Right. They were trying to cut Bring It On Down to be their first single. And the drums just weren't lining up. Like, it wasn't consistent. They were having trouble with it. So they broke and went to get food. And Noel retreated to the basement. And when he came up from the basement, again, he said they left for Chinese. They came back. They were done. And I'd come upstairs. So however long that took, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. Lore will only know. Those walls will only know. But Supersonic was written and they went immediately into cutting it, which I just think is like yet another one of those examples of a story you hear from Zeppelin or anybody else where you're like, how is that even possible? Knowing what we know now of that song and, you know, how important it is to so many out there. It's like this thing was just like birthed from Noel's brain. And
the best songs I think come out of the ether. I mean, like, and I'm not going to compare the band that I'm in and we play some gigs and we have fun with it. But just a few weeks ago, this song, I had a riff and then we meet and 2 hours later we went through it and we've cut it. And it's like, wow, like that's better than songs we've labored over. So this album, from a Supersonic being the, you know, one end of it, and then a couple others we'll talk about that were kind of nuggets that kind of grew. But this band, though, Oasis, is playing around Manchester. They're playing around the UK, and they eventually signed to Creation Records in 1993. And this is a fairly reputable label for indie rock bands, I believe, in England. But now the pressure's on. Now it's time to actually go and record an album. They've done some rough demos before, but not like an official single release, let alone an album. So this, Ben, is where the legacy of Definitely Maybe gets a little bit, I'd say rocky at the time, but it just, it makes the album that much more legendary when you hear how it didn't come easy at all. So right. You mentioned Supersonic, right? That is December 1993. They say they spent £100 on that recording and production at Pink Museum in Liverpool. That was the name of the studio, Pink Museum. So Supersonic is cut. We think we got our first single. Great. Next month, we're going to go in and we're going to record our full-length album. So they go to Wales. It's called Mono Valley Studio. Ben, we're going to run over so many English words and butcher them in this series. Fair warning, right? I mean,
yeah. Sawmills, Cornwall. Out of the Blue, Manchester. I mean, it's just all these names. As I was going through review today, I was like, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's gonna come. It's gonna come fast. Okay, so they go to Wales in January '94 with a fella by the name of Bachelor. His name is David Bachelor, and they they cut the whole thing, right? But it's not good enough. Something is lacking because these guys notoriously had a very loud and energetic. Well, I shouldn't say energetic as far as like stage antics. They didn't do that, but there was this electricity coming through the amplifiers and the drum set and Liam's voice that was not captured. So, okay, next month, February 1994, they go to Cornwall. You mentioned Cornwall. They go to Sawmills. Now, these cuts were ultimately used. The mix, however, did not work. So they're at a loss for words, and Noel actually reaches a point where he says, "Fuck it, I'm done with it." Like, he tells Creation, "Figure something out. I don't want to touch it. I'm sick and tired of these songs," and I understand that. And then Owen Morris, a producer, mixer, takes these tapes to Manchester, Johnny Marr's studio. He was of the Smiths, and he mixed the album all over again. And it finished in London at Matrix Studios in May 1994. So Owen Morris is the guy to be, I think, credited with this wall of sound, which I'll be honest, if you listen to this loud enough on headphones or in your car speakers, do your ears get fatigued listening to this album? I'm not shitting on it, but do your ears fatigue a little bit? Or are you just used enough to the sound where it's kind of like, I've grown that way too. Like I know what I'm getting with Definitely Maybe.
I agree to the sentiment. It is more trebly than what would be considered like a normal tone, right? Deeper. I think nowadays, though, I get more fatigue from like that comforter of bass and lack of what we're referring to as treble. So like I do understand what you're getting at. I think I'm probably immune to it because that was just the essence of Oasis where I kind of know what I'm getting into whenever I, go track by track, but I do understand it. I think there's just a level of sharpness that if you're not used to it, it's definitely daunting. And it's also just track by track. You get the sense of it. So
yeah, I think our buddy Nate has mentioned that part of the mindset behind the mixing and engineering of this album and ultimately the mastering, which is the final process, is to basically do what they ended up calling brick wall production. Now, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could hear this on the Red Hot Chili Peppers album, By the Way. You heard it all the way through Metallica's Death Magnetic album. Brick walling means that when you take that track, have you heard this concept before?
Yes.
Yeah. You take the track onto, any audio editor, and it's just literally a rectangle because it's so loudly mixed that there's no breathing room. So that's kind of what you get with Definitely Maybe. And the thought behind this, according to our buddy Nate, who is more versed in Oasis stuff than you and I, was that if you were in a pub, that Oasis song is going to be that much louder on the jukebox. It's like the Nigel Tufnell method. It's one louder. So it's going to resonate with the people in whatever pub they're in. So that's how they mix it. And Owen Morris, if he's not necessarily an audiophile, I think for what this album is, it sounds exactly as it should.
Wow. Were you about to say Owen Wilson?
Wow. Did I say Owen Wilson?
You got close. No, you didn't say it. You got real close. Wow. But that may be a true. Now, Champagne Supernova, not so much. And that would have been like one of my earliest memories. But that is probably a major factor in why I enjoyed them so much at such a young age. A lot of the other albums I had back then, man, I had the Beatles anthology, loud moments for sure, but also some very serene, pleasant moments and chill. I had
Pumpkins. Studio Chatter, if you're talking about the anthology CDs.
Yeah, I had Pumpkins. I had the Wallflowers debut album. Man, I had some Clint Black. So like I'm right deep into the 90s, but I'm telling you that like a lot of those albums were more subtle in their recording, the recording style. And I think I knew, man, if you needed like that bump of energy, if you wanted just to go relatively hard, it's not metal, but it was close to the feelings that I get from listening to metal, right? It's like you're you're in it, and it's a ride, and it's not going to disappoint you. And this album specifically, top to bottom, and even the stuff that I've put in our ranking system, which we haven't even mentioned the flow of this podcast for those who have not listened to our Led Zeppelin series before, of how we formulate this. But I will say that even some of the tracks that would be considered the lower half of what would be ranked top to bottom are still heavy hitters.
Yes, I
in
mean
terms of their energy. So
yeah, it's like whatever the filler tracks would be considered. I don't think were considered that at the time. I think it's like over the years, there's certain songs, probably 6 or 7, if we're being real about it, that have become like, wow. Just, I mean, you could play them in any pub in England and they would get a response. I say that, and here's the thing: whether it be our Shampod Supercasta cover art or the things I'm going to say in the series about England, I've only been once, and I am not trying to be culturally insensitive. I am a quarter British. I love the culture, but I know for a damn fact that I will totally say some stereotypical kind of shit in the series.
Listen, man, you got to embrace it. I've come to terms with the fact we're going to get eaten alive. There's no scenario in which we don't get eaten alive.
Of course.
We're talking about timing again, right? Perfect timing, perfect place. We are in the perfect time frame of the historical world right now in the universe to get eaten alive by every take that we put out there right now from both the Oasis Reddit folks and everybody else, because of what is about to happen, not only across the pond, but the US right now. So we're going to botch some things. We apologize in advance for mispronouncing some key terms that are more English than they are in our land of being Yankees and Cowboys, but it is what it is. So we'll deal with it.
That's the background. Should we get in the tracks?
Let's roll, man. Should we explain really quickly kind of the foundation of this?
Good call. So the first thing we're going to do is we will discuss each track with a little bit of detail. We'll work through these 11 songs here, after which we'll talk briefly about kind of the reception, which, got a pretty good reception at the time, and then over time, its stature has only increased. And then how do we end this thing? Because you kind of alluded to this ranking system that we did for Zeppelin that we're going to carry over to this.
Yeah, so to kind of just button up each podcast of our mini series, we go through a ranking system, and probably the most notable is going to be our ranking system of the tracks themselves. So Schmiggy here and myself, we have no preconceived understanding on where our tracks are going to lie or how we're going to rank this thing, but we do have a system in which the top track is what we deem the Spiciest Biscuit. It is our favorite track on the album that we're covering, all the way down to, in this case, 11 tracks to the Dustiest Crumpet, the song that just didn't really make the proverbial cut to be in the meat of the sandwich, if you will, of the album. It's the least of our favorite tracks. We also have things on there along the lines of MVP, so album MVP. We have alternate title, something else that we would title the album, along with killer line. We want to hear about what lines impact us the most.
The key thing with that will be it's a mix of lyric and delivery, and with Liam, it's all about delivery. I mean, there's we pick a side A or side B, which is tricky because this is the CD era, but we'll kind of delineate where side A and side B would be. We'll pick the halfway point, and a few other things as well. So yes, listening, ranking music can be a fool's errand. I get it, but it can be fun. And for the sake of discussion, that's something we do at the end of each podcast. But before we get to the actual rankings of it, let's get to the songs themselves, beginning with Rock and Roll Star. What a clarion call. What a mission statement. What a call to arms to put this as your first track on your first album. We're going to call it Rock and Roll Star. And it's going to be so good. I mean, with a title like that, it's got to be good, or people will laugh at you. And it's that good. I mean, can you recall if you would have heard Champagne Supernova first? I'm guessing you got What's the Story, Morning Glory first, and then naturally worked your way back to Definitely Maybe. So you probably had heard Live Forever and Supersonic on 107.1, but you probably started with track 1.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a freaking shot of adrenaline from the first chord and the first lead note that Noel's playing.
Yeah, and even to this day, and I'm not saying this because we're coming off the proverbial coattails of our Led Zeppelin miniseries, but I always looked at this not as literal as I do now. Of like, man, these guys were straight up calling themselves rock and roll stars. Track one of their very first album as they debut themselves to the world. I sort of was like, this is kind of a nod to Zeppelin in a way. I mean, it's, in their backyard, they clearly understand the recipe and the blueprint for what they needed to do. I don't think that's like a secret, especially not now. I mean, they literally just compiled everything and understood like we have to be abrasive. I mean, they got kicked out of and banned from how many hotels in their first wave of not even being stars yet. They understood the drug, if you will.
They understood the qualifications necessary to be a prototypical rock star. They got it. And
Right.
a lot of that was just growing up in Manchester, where Noel often has been quoted along the lines of, okay, I had three choices. I could either be work in a factory, I could be a drug dealer, or I could be a musician / rock and roll star. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there was something probably refreshing in 1994 too, that, you have Kurt Cobain, and we'll get into his name will pop up later, but, he dies from a heroin overdose, and all the grunge stuff, heroin. And Oasis is like, fuck that. Like, we're taking ecstasy and we're going out to the clubs, and then we're going to do some lines of blow. They're going to do the fun drugs, not the go to sleep ones. So just right away, they're basically establishing their rock cred, if you will, by saying we do drugs, we smoke, and we're going to be stars. There we go. Let's do it.
Yeah. And, just kind of calling back from the Zeppelin miniseries one more time, Mike, I often talked about the idea of going into your room, shutting the door, dimming the lights, potentially putting on a candle or whatever, and then letting the album that you just purchased spin on your, on your album player. And it's like listening to Liam talk about Noel being gone and what his routine was he would go to work, he would get off, he would grab a sandwich, he would smoke weed, he would walk into the record store, and he would spend his money that he just made on an album. And most times, no rhyme or reason beyond what album he was picking up. He said he would go home, he would throw it on, he would lay directly on the floor, and he would just soak in it. And I'm thinking, this dude was studying. He was studying day in and day out on do's, don'ts, and just mostly feeling, right, on how to formulate what he wanted to do before he even really realized it, I think. So whenever you're talking about calling your shot, but also just manifesting, I think he did both simultaneously. And then you come out of the gates with rock and roll star, and it's like, okay, so no secrets here, right?
No, I mean, it's just right away. It's like, here's who we are, unabashedly, unashamedly. This is who we are. And they thought about releasing this as a single. They did not ultimately do that. Same with Cigarettes and Alcohol. They did not. Oh, no, Cigarettes and Alcohol was the final single. Slide Away was another one they were considering that they didn't. And this, just imagine, right? At this point, this album comes out, and I'm pretty sure the three singles that would have been out to the public and all got a pretty good response, and probably an increasing response with each one, was Supersonic, and then Shakermaker, and then Live Forever. So that's what the public knows. And yes, Supersonic rocks, but it's a kind of plodding mid-tempo thing, right? It's all swagger. Live Forever, Shakermaker is yet again a plodding 12-bar blues, essentially. And then you have Live Forever, which is a ballad. So then this one starts, and it kicks up the tempo a notch. And from the get-go, it is loud and raucous, and in a way that even the other three songs weren't. I know Live Forever is about living forever, but there's a hint of melancholy, a beautiful kind of melancholy to it. No, Rock and Roll Star is just fun. And I got this quote, and you might have seen it too from Noel. I thought this was interesting. He said, quote, "I've pretty much summed up everything I wanted to say in Rock and Roll Star, Live Forever, and Cigarettes and Alcohol. After that, I'm repeating myself, but in a different way." So he's saying those three songs were basically kind of his, I don't know, life. What would we even call that? Modus operandi, right? That's basically what he was saying there. And this song, I think, kind of embodies a lot of what Oasis is about.
Yeah, agreed. It's we talked about it with Zeppelin too, man, but it's just like an absurdity to, in my opinion, to think about like what are we going to lead off with, guys? How do we do this? And there's clearly songs on this album that I guess if I were the chief, so to speak, I would have been thinking a bit differently. But then if you dissect and, dial in exactly who Led Zeppelin is, what they are about, and how they wanted to unveil the curtain, so to speak, to the world, there's no better song, I think, to come out of the gates with than this. It's pretentious, but in a very good way. If they would have led off with Supersonic or Live Forever or something like that, I think they would have, not that there may have been any difference. So my take here is hot, and it's
No, I think there would have
probably
been.
different.
I
But
think there would have been.
there would have been an essence of, let's just call it Live Forever in place of Rock and Roll Star, and you may have run the risk of not coming off as sharp and pretentious as that swagger that gives and alludes to exactly who Oasis is with Rock and Roll Star. So,
And I don't want my rock stars humble. I don't.
no.
I don't want them that way. I want them
And
with outsized egos. So this had to be such a breath of fresh air
for
in
sure,
1994.
I don't think there's enough conversation either. If you have done deep dives into Oasis, people are going to know more than we're even talking about right now, and we're probably going to get some really good historical lore post releasing these pods as well, which I'm looking forward to. But some bands that kind of preceded or were at the same time, you're talking about The Verve,
which Richard Ashcroft from The Verve is opening for them in England,
which is cool. And then stood the test of time. But I mean, he, in my opinion, lacked what this song opens with, which is like, he had the chops, he had the ability, he had the great hit, but
the songs.
I don't think he really just like put his foot down and was like, this is where I'm from, this is what I do, this is why you're gonna love me. And then the other is like the Stone Roses, which I love, by the way. I don't know if you recall me.
No, I remember you bringing that album
Stone
to
Roses.
House. Yeah, the debut.
But again, like they sort of were like, let's see if people dig this. It wasn't a you're gonna dig this, So yeah, I
just find the attitude that they have and still have, and obviously they're more mature now, but I would have, if I had been an impressionable age in 1994. I mean, you caught on to it a year later, so it's not like I couldn't have. But if I had been, 21 when this album comes out, I mean, come on, this scratches every itch, like attitude wise, and you go from this opener to Shakermaker, which it's brazen enough to open an album with Rock and Roll Star, and then you kick it up a notch by literally cribbing I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, the Coca-Cola anthem from 1970s. You get sued by the writers of that, understandably. And yet, am I blowing smoke by saying it's another bit of, I don't know, bravura, like sort of like swagger, where it's like, I know what it is, but I'm going to use that melody anyway. And then we're going to release it as our second single, and everyone's going to love it. I don't think Shakermaker is a classic per se among Oasis's very best. However, when I listened to the live version on Familiar to Millions, I kept going back to it.
It's
infectious.
Would it be on the 5 face Mount Rushmore of Zeppelin songs? Probably not, but it's right there in terms of like the building blocks for what we know. And you
wait, Zeppelin or Oasis?
Oasis.
So now by Mount Rushmore, do you mean all-time 5 best, or like sort of foundational forefather types, like the sort of template?
Yeah, well, we're talking apples and oranges here in terms of tracks, but like obviously Wonderwall, probably Champagne Supernova. There's going to be tracks that exist up there in the faces of what their Mount Rushmore is, but this goes into basically what we're going to talk about here in the argument, is that Shakermaker was just as prevalent of a song for me growing up and memorable enough that I would name it in 2 seconds. And I wasn't even like a full-fledged Oasis fan. Right. So, and some of these facts that are drawn out here are absolutely mind blowing to me, because I never even got those takeaways from it. So it just shows you like they had a formula of some kind and it worked. But man, this song goes so hard and it goes hard live. So it's like
Yeah.
I've never not loved this song, both studio and live, especially Familiar to Millions. So it's,
No, I mean, to me, what I think really caught on with this song is when I started viewing it as a blues song. I mean, it is a 12-bar blues, but the cool thing about it, to show the originality behind it, despite the vocal chorus melody, or not the chorus melody, actually, it's the verse, is so similar to the Coca-Cola song, is that it starts off with what is a very snaky kind of riff, just simple, but kind of dreamy, like, a little psychedelia in here. And then the lyrics, kind of like Supersonic, are a little bit surrealistic, and back to use this word again, psychedelic. And what's really cool about it is reading about where these song lyrics came from. They came from Noel's childhood, essentially. So a Shakermaker was a toy in the 1970s. Mr. Soft was taken from a Trebor Soft Mints commercial, most British sounding candy ever. Mr. Clean is a song by The Jam, one of his favorite bands. And Mr. Ben is a British children's cartoon. And the entire last verse, which is Mr. Sifter sold me songs when I was just 16. Now he stops at traffic lights, but only when they're green. How Beatles is that? How Penny Lane is that?
100%. And I believe Shakermaker is the song where they were trying to figure out sort of the chops and the approach of how they wanted to do things lyrically. And Noel had sort of coached Liam into saying, this is your John Lennon moment, like that tone. And the comparison is scary. I mean, in terms of the inspiration of feeling that melody, right?
Yeah.
Both the Coca-Cola and then the Beatles. But yeah.
I like this song a lot, and I'm not going to put it maybe on, I don't think songwriting wise it's up there with Noel's very, very best, but I think for a track, it's a great track too. It's like you don't lose any energy from the first one. It still rocks, but it offers something different from the first one. And then it leads into the third track, which I think that I have this theory, Ben, that the third track on a lot of albums is reserved for a classic. I'll give you one immediate example because Noel Gallagher was a huge fan of Octung Baby by U2, which is one of my all-time favorite albums. Track 3 is 1. The band knew they had something. They stuck at track 3. Rock out for tracks 1 and 2. Bring it down with 1. Here's Oasis with Live Forever. And notoriously, the story goes that Noel brought it into the band, and they didn't believe that he wrote it. It's too good. And without giving anything away about our Spiciest Biscuit rankings later, this song is perfect. People dream of writing a song like this, and 99.9% of songwriters will never have that moment. It's perfection. And every time I listen to it, there's not a single note or element that I would say, if they would have done this, it might have been. No, I think it's perfect.
Yeah. This is where we get into delicate situations pre-ranking without kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. But I will let you know that it's probably the most difficult thing to do in terms of the review of this album and listening to it again is trying to remove myself from how I feel about hearing some of these tracks live. So like Live Forever on Familiar to Millions, I'm with you, man. Like it's hard to bet against that. Of this album initially, love it. I'm not discrediting what Live Forever is, but it hits different for me. Studio versus live.
I'm actually the opposite. I actually like the studio cut better.
Okay. So there you go. I mean, this is a perfect example of to each their own. It's just there are tracks on this album that hit me initially where it counts a little bit more than this did. However, lyrically and cosmically for what it did to my brain, there's no denying that, right? This is like the messaging behind it, the serenity that you get from listening to it, the energy simultaneously that you get while you're having a moment of serenity is like, what more would you want from a song? So I'm with you there. And I do also agree it's a perfect song. And would probably beat out a lot of songs that I would put before it on this album in terms of overall lifetime rankings, right? That's a different scenario. It's a different day. It's a different conversation, because now we're talking about, how about live? How about, today versus 94? So there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. But as I go through this track by track listing and listening again, it was one of those moments. I'm not comparing Dave Matthews Band to Oasis, but it's like when you go back and listen to a track off like Before These Crowded Streets, and then you go hear it live. There's differences, and you either love studio or you love live. And the beauty also behind Oasis is I do feel that there's a very finite, not a very finite difference most times. Like, they have replicated their live sound very, very well from their studio stuff. So it's not like this huge difference, but there is a difference nonetheless. And I would be remiss if I didn't admit that. So
the context behind this song and the writing of it, this is a quote from Noel Gallagher. It's a little bit lengthy, but and it's very easy to spot on Instagram. You get the algorithm going with Oasis stuff, and you've probably seen this. But he said, quote, "At the time, it was written in the middle of grunge and all that. And I remember Nirvana had a tune called I Hate Myself and Want to Die. And I was like, well, I'm not fucking having that. As much as I fucking like him, Kurt Cobain and all that shit, I just love all these, like, he didn't have to say and all that shit, but he just has to, also because he's Mancunian, excuse me. As much as I fucking like him and all that shit, I'm not having that. I can't have people like that coming over here on Smack fucking saying that they hate themselves and they want to die. That's fucking rubbish. Kids don't need to be hearing that nonsense. You know what? I don't disagree. Oh, the quote, and that he didn't say that. I'm saying I don't disagree with Noel. And then he continues, or this is a different quote. Quote, "Seems to me that here was a guy who had everything and was miserable about it. And we had fuck all, and I still thought that getting up in the morning was the greatest fucking thing ever, because you didn't know where you'd end up at night. And we didn't have a pot to piss in, but it was fucking great, man." I don't know why. No, I know why. I find that, like, inspiring. Like, it just, isn't that it? Why this album worked. I'm watching this documentary on from the BBC, but you can only see it on YouTube in America. It's called Shifty. And it's a 5-part documentary about England from basically like the late 70s to the turn of the century. And its big thesis is basically Margaret Thatcher fucked everything up economically, industry left, and England has never quite been the same. I haven't gotten into any Oasis mention there in the documentary. It might be there, but I think, Ben, when you consider that in 1994, England was still coming back from what was a very rough transition out of like industrial England. Like, unemployment was high, inflation was high. And then in Manchester, which was a very industrial town, kind of like Liverpool was for the Beatles, the similarity was these guys did not grow up in well-to-do families. Mick Jagger grew up in a well-to-do family. Paul and John and George and Ringo did not. The Gallagher brothers did not. So this song is them saying, yeah, we didn't have a lot, but that's life. And it's still beautiful. And we're going to go out. We're going to live. So I don't know. I find that inspiring. I love it.
Inspiring is the perfect word. I thought long and hard about this too, because I have to be delicate here in my explanation of this without coming off insanely crazy. But like, at face value, you would say that the Gallagher brothers and Oasis in its entirety has a facade that they put on, right? It would have been the feeling that I would have had if I was an early Oasis fan and I'm like, I love these guys. But if I was from the same area that they're in, I think I would have a different approach. And that's what I tried to come at this from, is like, especially with the long, massive, like 20-year break that they took, it's not a facade, man. And I think that quote that you just pulled out is like describing as much. Like, the Smack and everything else that the grunge era was doing, it was almost like they were force feeding themselves and their audience depression.
Yeah.
I love Nirvana too, and I love the grunge movement. You know I do. I fucking love Chris Cornell. I love Pearl Jam. That was our movement, I guess you could say. And
It was, yeah.
Alice in Chains. But dude, you go back and visit all that shit, and it was purposely heavily dark and depressing and pulling the heartstrings in different ways. But it was a facade, because then you'd run into Kurt Cobain backstage, and the dude's tra la la happy. I mean, at moments anyway. Liam has always been Liam, right? Like, he has a quote: "Every time I look in the mirror, God looks back." Like, this dude is this dude understands the recipe, but also even the 20-year break, he's very, very present on X, Twitter, right? Like, the dude is exactly Liam. He just puts it out there, and if it's received, great. If not, like he mentions, fuck all. Like, it doesn't, I'm not going to take offense to it, but I don't think any of it beyond him making a decision that was going to be his approach to life is a facade.
Yeah, no,
right. So, and to button that up, this track, beyond coming out of the gates with Rock and Roll Star and then Shakermaker, I think alludes to that mix of cat dog that we talked about in the early moments of this podcast. Is like, it's sort of letting the world know, like, something just a little bit deeper than face value, and obviously what they let out of the gates with Rock and Roll Star. It's like, yeah, we're pompous, we have our moments, but this is also a side of us that you're going to get a taste of as well. And
yeah, but this is landing in a country where, the last 15 years, like 1979, and Thatcher gets elected, and then the working class part of England, other parts were doing great. The financial people were doing great, but like the industrial cities like Manchester and Liverpool and Birmingham were not. So this had to resonate, because it was it was an injection of fun and life affirming rock and roll. And keep in mind, in the 80s, I mean, as much as, the Stone Roses had a cool vibe, and they weren't necessarily writing, I don't know their lyrical content very well, but I don't think as depressing as like the grunge movement. But whether it be Joy Division in the early 80s or the Smiths and the Stone Roses, Oasis was influenced by at least the Stone Roses for sure, and the Smiths, but really incorporated so much more just like joy. And this song is all about that. One more thing about Live Forever before we move on to the next track. Shine a Light by the Rolling Stones is from Exile on Main Street. It's a gospel influence song. I love it. I did not realize that this was an influence on Noel when he wrote this song. And even I'm still kind of struggling to see the direct correlation between it. But he has this quote that says, it was the bit from Shine a Light that goes, "May the good Lord shine a light on you." And he goes on to say that he incorporated that melody, changed the line to "maybe I don't really want to know." And for a while, that was all that he had to the song. This idea that I'm going to start it with the word "maybe." And it's perfect. I mean, it's just, it is a 10 out of 10 song. I'm not giving anything away, though, for my Spiciest Biscuit rankings. I'll say that.
Sure. There was another tidbit that the rest of the band didn't believe that Noel had actually written it whenever he presented it to them early in '93, which is like probably the feeling that we all had. Is like, what is this that I'm listening to right now? And it goes as far as the people that he was surrounding himself with, that was tasked with formulating this band, also thought, this can't be yours, right? So
yeah, I'm going to pull that up real quick. Bonehead, who is touring with him again, he's the rhythm guitarist. He did have a quote about this. I want to just make sure I get it, though. Do I have that? I don't. I'm sorry. I had some earlier, but basically, yeah, he was the one that had a big quote. And also in Tony McCarroll, the drummer's book, he kind of says something similar to that. So, all right, classic. We got a couple more of those coming up, if not a few more than a couple. Up in the Sky is Beatles, 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 and more Beatles. It is the Beatles, I don't want to say ripoff, but definitely Beatles pastiche. And is there a song, Ben, that it reminds you of in particular? It's a B-side.
B-side Beatles.
Yeah, from like 65 or 66. It would have been not on the red or the blue double albums. It was on what was called Past Masters, which is like a greatest hits kind of thing. Rain.
Rain. Okay. Yeah.
Very Rain like the chord progression, the fact that you have these like diminishing or descending chord lines, but the bass is still kind of holding it down. Yeah. Here's the thing. Would we agree, and this is no slight to the song, that compared to other tracks on the album, this could be considered filler? Is that, I'm not sliding it. It's just,
yes,
it's really good. It's really good, but
yeah, no, I think that it would be fair to say this is a filler track. And if your theory is true about a third track, you would believe that a filler track, quote unquote, would likely come after said heavy hitter third track.
It's good placement for it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you go from Live Forever, which is, we talked plenty about that, but I think that Up in the Sky, while I would not rank it as, one of my favorite Oasis songs, it is a bit of a palate cleanser because you can't have every song be super heavy. And I kind of enjoy listening to a band in the early days, kind of figuring out who they are and what they're about. And this is still a band that I think by What's the Story, Morning Glory, you could hear influences, but it was all Oasis. I think this is still very much a band that's like, let's do our Beatles song now. It's Oasis, but it is still very much like, let's try a Beatles thing. And I enjoy this song.
I enjoy it heavily. And it's also to me like a song where beyond, Live Forever and Rock and Roll Star and even Shakermaker and the way those make me feel, Up in the Sky is sort of one of those moments where it makes you take a step back, but then also in its quote unquote filler makes you realize the brilliance of Liam, because his delivery on this is insane, dude.
It's one of his best vocals, yeah.
It truly is. So like that was the moment for me where I'm like, Live Forever. I mean, come on, dude. Like you can't argue that. You can't argue it in any capacity of the history of Oasis, but Up in the Sky, whenever you dwindle it down to just lyrical delivery alone, you're like, this could be one where maybe the guy that I know of as Liam Gallagher wouldn't have gone as hard on this track. And to me, it's one of his better performances on the entire album.
Some falsetto.
Obviously, the other formulation beyond that is the fact that the tracks themselves are full band and brilliant in their own right from each member. But this one alone is like, okay, there's a standout pro, and that's where you catch yourself, because you're like, yeah, pro, like this dude, this is them coming out of the gates right now, like, so pretty incredible. And I do like, this is not one that I just blindly skip through. This is one I always listen to in its entirety, which you were calling a filler track. I'm like, I do agree, but I don't skip this. So
yeah, it's not skippable. And I think that what I also like about it, perfect placement. It ends with this sort of spacey fade out that takes a while with some guitars kind of going left, right channel, and then it fades out and in fades. I'm so excited to talk about this. Columbia. I mentioned Octung Baby is one of my favorite albums and one of Noel's favorite albums. And real quick aside, when I saw you two perform Octung Baby at the Sphere in Las Vegas, little did I know that probably 50 feet behind me on the floor of the Sphere was Noel Gallagher. He posted an Instagram thing, and the next day in our chat thread, our buddy Nate was like, dude, Noel was at your show. And I look, I'm like, Jesus, like I think I can see my head behind him. So the very first thing I thought when I heard this song was, oh, wow, this is very Octung Baby. It's got some industrial kind of sounding drums. There's 3 chords. There's no real big musical changes. It's 6 minutes, and for me, it could go 12. I don't want this song to end. I love it.
I don't want to give away much of my rankings either, and I'm not doing so in that statement right there.
I'll say this real quick. I could have put 4 songs as my spiciest biscuit.
Same.
I was waffling between 4.
I was heavily between 5, so I'm glad that you and I are right there. Columbia to me is one where I'm not getting my hopes up, but just for pure essence of the historics behind what the song means to me and how quote unquote Oasis the goddamn song is. I mean, there's really nobody out there that could have replicated this song or what it does or how it hits you for the first time, how it hits you the second time, and how it just continues to repeat itself in delivery every time you listen to it. It is one of the only songs that I listen to where every time I listen to it, I am in no shape or form tired of it, like in any capacity, right? And I'm talking like across the catalog of bands in their entirety that I listen to, not just Oasis. So, if we hear it in Chicago, again, I'm not getting my hopes up, but it will just be one of those moments that to me, this isn't a song that is up there on the Mount Rushmore. This is one where it's like, you got to kind of know Oasis just a little bit, right?
You're right. It's not a deep cut.
It's not a deep cut
on the greatest hits,
but it's not a deep cut, but it's not up top. And I don't mean up top in terms of like song ranking. I just mean from like, straight track lore. It's not right there. So it would just be a heavy moment for me. And one where I think it would be my first, like, I don't know. I think back to recommendations from loved ones who had gotten married before me and their tutelage on how to take the day on. And one of the biggest takeaways was as often as you can at any time during the day, take 3 steps back from wherever you're at and just observe. And that's what this song does to me on this album. It forces you to step back 2 or 3 steps and just observe.
Okay.
And so that's like what I get from this. And I think that would be my moment at Soldier Field where I would like, dude, we're going to get up there. We're going to pregame the night before. We're going to see friends we haven't seen in a long time. Me enjoying the city. We're going to get into Soldier Field, which is going to be its own drug in and of itself, just walking on the field of the place that we love in completely different capacity. And I feel that if for some reason this song lands anywhere within the set list, it'll be that moment where I'm like, wait a minute, do what you preach, take 2-3 steps back and just look at where the hell you are right now. That's what this track does to me on this album. So it puts me in a whole lot of feel. And it's just perfect, man. Like it's just brilliant in its delivery, and it's just so goddamn Oasis. So
it is. And yet the weird thing about it is there's not any other tracks in their discography I can think of that are this sort of kind of droning industrial rock thing. But you're right. At the same time, it's still like quintessential Oasis. For someone that's only been listening to Oasis for a year. So that's that I shouldn't maybe making those grand proclamations, but what the hell?
Lastly, the most interesting thing probably about the track is there is no real massive hook or like strong grab. It's sort of just like ongoing.
It's linear. It's very linear. And there's no guitar. I mean, there's guitar fills, but there's no guitar solo.
Right.
I got a quick misheard lyric and I can't decide if I like it better. I sang along for the first few months of this song. This is the future. Am I confusing you? And I was like, well, that kind of sounds a little techno kind of like, I don't know, like it sounds, again, Octung Baby style, like this idea of electronics merging with, I don't know. So I thought it was, this is the future. Am I confusing you? But no, this is confusion. Am I confusing you? But, as abstract as some of the lyrics may be, even from the very first one, there we were, now here we are. I mean, I love Noel's songwriting for the simplicity in the same way that I really love Tom Petty's, and they're completely different. But that you could listen to a Tom Petty song and you can project what you would like to on a lot of those lyrics, but they are not overly simple and they're not glib. Like they're actually kind of thought-provoking, and they have this really sort of imagery, even if they aren't telling you it was a smoky night. No, like you conjure up your own images. And for me, Columbia is like very cinematic. I see things when I'm listening to this song.
Yeah, I mean, I think the comparison there is perfect. If you think about like, Tom Petty, it's like, oh my, oh hell yes, honey, put on that party dress. And it's like that sung by Johnny Cash or anybody else is not going to do what it did by Tom Petty delivering it in that essence. And Columbia, even when he's like, there we were and here we are, it's like he's his own instrument
Yeah.
in that line, so it's like he's delivering it in a way where it's thought provoking. Once you hear it once, though, it's over. It's like its own drug. You're hooked, and it, but it's an instrument in that moment, and it's making you think outside the box just a little bit about what you're hearing instead of just a straight delivery. So Oasis is also one of those bands, man, where we argue sometimes that lyrics don't necessarily matter. I mean, we said it repeatedly during Zeppelin. It was
Zeppelin for sure.
It was more Robert's delivery, but man, I mean, it's somewhat opposite here. There's delivery, but there's also essence behind what's actually written on the page, which is pretty incredible. So
yeah, I can't tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is all too real. Yeah. Again, all simple, but like I think you make a good point. I'm glad you mentioned Liam because I haven't done enough of that. Like he's so good in this, and I think he gets better over the next couple albums. But like he already kind of had this delivery that elevates lines that could otherwise maybe be seen as too simple or whatever. But he adds this sort of extra layer to them. So Columbia, I know will be up there for both of us. Now this next one, talk about a heavy hitter, Supersonic. The first single from the album came out all the way. I'm trying to think what the date was for that, but it was sometime in the spring, I think, of '94, and it announced Oasis to the world, and it was very well received, and it really started building up this hype very quickly for this band. This song, Supersonic, as we mentioned earlier, was written, according to Noel Gallagher, in about 30 minutes, or the time it took for the band, the rest of them, to get Chinese takeout. And then they recorded it straight after for what they claim to be 100 pounds in about 1 hour's worth of time in the studio. I want to focus on the first line of this song. I need to be myself. I can't be no one else.
mm-hmm.
That is rock and roll in one lyric.
Yeah, and
that's it. That's fucking it. I just that it kills me every time.
Yeah, lightning strikes sometimes, and from top to bottom, this song always puts me right in the same exact place, and I don't know why. I'll just bring you back to a moment in time. So, it's summer 2006.
Was this when we were living together?
Yeah,
we got the sublet. Yeah,
we were. But Nate Stein was back in town, and Kenton was throwing a house party. Don, Susan, it's far enough removed from this time.
Statute of limitations has been removed.
Yeah, I think we're safe. But when I say it was a house party, that's probably just like under delivering. This was one of the bigger ones that Kenton had definitely ever thrown.
But we kept the dog safe and we cleaned up.
Yeah, and there were both folks that had already been in college for a year or two, and there was folks that just got into college, and then there was underclassmen that were, students and classmates of Kenton. So it was kind of all walks of life there. But obviously, as lacrosse players, we had teammates that were still in school, and then ones that had since graduated. Long story short, at this time, one of Nate's favorite drinks was a gin and tonic, ironically enough, and
Schweppes, and Nate had this one of my favorite traditions, which was to either walk into a wedding, which we'd come to find out after this. Obviously, we weren't around a ton of weddings back then, but would walk into an establishment and he would look for the most absurd vehicle for his drink. So this particular party, we walk in late. Like we were at a John Street house. We were pre-gaming, and we decided, hey, we need to go see our boy, support him, and also make sure that the house isn't like burning down. Or I was with you guys this night.
Full. You were
we at Corn Stubbles before?
We weren't. We were actually at Danny's John Street house. So like
right,
not too far where the usual parties were. And I don't know why we wouldn't have just thrown it there this night anyway, because that house was much more situated for parties that could then be cleaned up down the road and not immediately. Nonetheless, it was always fun to party at home. So that's a whole nother conversation. Nonetheless, we walk in like we fucking own the joint and say what's up to Kent, and we make our way into the kitchen. which is unchanged to this day. And right below Don's oven, there's a drawer. And in that drawer, I don't know how Nate just goes to this drawer, but it's so vivid in my memory. He pops it open, and there is a Tupperware that is the circumference of just a glass. Okay, but it's like probably about 1.5 feet long. So in my opinion, it's like one where you would put like dried spaghetti noodles in and then put the top on, right, to keep them like in the cupboard or something. So it was empty, and man, he like cuts full limes on the cutting block table right there, drops them into this thing, loads it with ice, pours it about 50-50 with gin, and then tops it off with Schweppes, and off to the races we fucking go. And this song definitely was played that night, but it's just one of those moments where as soon as this song starts, and as monumental as it is, it brings me to other thoughts and feelings and energy. But I also, for moments during this song, go straight back to Don and Susan, straight back to that house party, straight to seeing that gin and tonic get made, and that's all she wrote. So
that's a perfect story. Just knowing Nate, and he's a bit, for those that, our listeners don't know Nate probably, so he's a big burly guy, and there's something about when you get around him and things are festive and you're listening to good music that you just want him to take those big arms and kind of like not give you a noogie quite, but like a full body noogie pretty much. And he does that a lot because he's a big, strong guy. So I can envision him with this, 86 ounce, 18-inch tall Tupperware container full of 50-50 Schweppes and cheap gin. And this song comes on and he's like, oh, just whatever kind of like audible, excited noise that he would make. And to transpose that to what this song probably did as far as impact in England, I bet if you still put this on in a pub at a proper time, it would do that kind of thing. And I can only imagine in 94, 95, when Oasis Mania was really picking up there, that like, if there was such a thing as an ultimate drinking song that barely references drinking, if at all, I mean, this seems to kind of be that sort of thing. And none of the lyrics are that easy to sing along to. It's all surrealistic, and yet it's this magical stew that just it works. I don't know.
Yeah, Oasis came to me in waves, like I said. I mean, the first two albums, obviously, but whenever I say that, I sort of like, I didn't fall out of love. I just, went in other directions musically. And I think back to walking into that house, and this was the chapter in life which most people hopefully experienced, but we definitely did, where we were just like a one singular chapter ahead of like the class below us and stuff. So you'd have this essence where you'd walk in and you'd be like, you guys are doing this wrong. You're not doing it to the standards. And when Nate made that drink in that massive Tupperware, the song came on, and we're sort of amongst what we know of as younger kids, but we're also kind of like, I'm not even going to say authoritative. Kenton had the floor. It was his house. It was his parents being out of town and his party. But
you guys knew what you were doing.
We knew we were doing it. Also, I'd been spending the night at this house at that point since I was, 7 years old. So like, it was as much, I felt at the moment in the time, that it was as much my home as it was everybody, definitely more so than 99.9% of people in the house, minus Kenton. So when we walked in there, I felt that, and it wasn't until Nate made that drink and the song came on that I was like, it just was one of those moments where you sit back and you laugh, because they're like, if I could have like written on a piece of paper what I wanted to do, which I could never do, that Nate did, it's like the perfect moment in time. And I think this song backs it up with just the swagger it has and the Gallagher way. So
I think that this has one of the better fade outs. I just love the fade out, because if you notice, we got the okay, we got the lead guitar line, and then all of a sudden these claps start, and then now the tambourine is going too. So it's like this fade out. It's another one of those things like Columbia. It could go on forever for all I'm concerned, and I feel the same way about Supersonic. It always blows my mind, because you are familiar with Familiar to Millions album, of course. Mm-hmm. And then even Nebworth 96 you started listening to recently, which I can't believe you hadn't found that, but I'm glad you did. And the studio version is like plodding. you hear it at first, you're like, is this like it's like playing a record, a 45 RPM single at 33 RPM, thinking that it's slowed down, and yet it actually, I think, works in that way too. I think it works fine live sped up. I think it works fine in the studio a little bit slow and plodding, and it's all attitude, man. And it's just I don't know, like as much as Rock and Roll Star is very like obvious in its swagger, this one somehow pulls it off with a little bit more nuance in a way. And I think, I mean, the lyrics, kind of like Shakermaker, they don't. I don't think even Noel would say they mean anything. It's sort of like when we talk about Champagne Supernova, something like a cannonball, and he's like, you know, it means something to certain people. What it means, I don't know, but like, I mean, Supersonic is another one of those things where it's like, why do these lyrics sound so good when they're coming out of you, top of your lungs, when you're driving in your car? I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that. So it must be some sort of like chemical thing or something in the ether that we can't see.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, and it's also the way that it just sort of cascades itself through the actual sonic vibes of the music itself. So like when that bass hits in, like right as they hit into "I Need to Be Myself," I mean you're sort of hitting that wave as it's like, you know, cresting, so to speak, where it's just it really is something that you can't really put into words. You either really dig it, I guess, or you don't understand it at all. But it's fully present in this song. It's kind of like, for those that don't necessarily dig Oasis, like I've got buddies of mine that understand what we're doing on the 28th and everything behind it, and I'm sort of like, maybe you guys are getting it wrong. Maybe you only remember like Wonderwall being played over and over again, and that wasn't your vibe. But I could play you a tune that might change your mind, and if I had just one track to try to sway them, I would probably put on Supersonic.
I think that's a good choice because it's sort of, I think, all encompassing for everything Oasis is good at. This kind of has it, right?
Yep.
Now they move on, and let's consider the start of side B is Supersonic. I was looking at the track lengths, and it's a 51-minute album. Essentially, after Columbia, we're at the halfway point. A lot of long songs in the first 5, and then there's Supersonic. So we move on to Bring It On Down. And this is punk rock. You know, the Gallagher brothers are big Sex Pistols fans. We know this because we hear Liam in Rock and Roll Star and Cigarettes and Alcohol. It's not sunshine, it's sunshine. Kind of like Johnny Rotten. So like they knew the Sex Pistols and they loved the Sex Pistols, and this is a punk song. And it's a pretty good one with a little bit of like social commentary sprinkled. You're the underclass. Damn. Okay.
But you don't care because you're living fast.
Fuck like, yeah. So again, imagine post. Remember, you know, it's so funny because in Austin Powers, Margaret Thatcher naked on a cold day. Margaret Thatcher. So I'm a kid. I'm like, who's Margaret Thatcher? And then
that's our Instagram teaser right there.
So think about like the time. It's not like Oasis is a political band. They aren't. But I think it's okay that these Manchester boys were like, man, like we're going to speak to our kind, not the people living in Chelsea, in London, or in oh God, what are some of the other neighborhoods? Kensington, you know, which is just like, you know, the uber ritzy part of London, but we're going to speak to our kind. So I respect that. And it's a good punk rock song.
Fully agree. I after
pregnant pause, I just left it there with nothing.
No, but after my outburst there with but you don't care because you're living fast made me quickly like revisit the actual lyrics. I'm like,
well, do you have those queued up?
Geez, I've got them right here. Yeah, it's like
read the chorus.
Well, there's a moment where he says, "You think they're talking about you, but you don't know who. I'll be scraping your life from the sole of my shoe tonight." It's like, golly, man, this is yeah, that's like take your knife and scrape your hatred over me type of stuff right there, man.
That is a Kenton Elmore special.
Love it. Yeah. Wow. I mean,
there's a lot of venom in this song.
A lot of venom. A lot of venom. I would sort of put this up there again. We're coming off Supersonic. I think it was sort of perfectly stuck right there as somewhat of a filler track. And I mean, if we're talking about a track that would be filler, it's got to be something that comes next as well. So
yeah, I sort of look at this like Up in the Sky as a palate cleanser.
It's a palate cleanser. It's limoncello, dude. It's like,
yeah,
let's quickly just get through something that is awesome. I mean, I love the song as well, but it's like perfectly situated right between one that is obvious and then one that is coming that is less obvious, in my opinion. Not the title of the track, but what's given to you. So
I do think this is a higher quality song than Up in the Sky. Like I think that there's more meat to it, if that makes sense. Where Up in the Sky is like a pleasant enough song and I don't skip it. I think there's a lot of care and effort in this one. And I know the band loves it, and they considered it to be their first single, and it would have certainly made noise, but I think the choice ultimately to Supersonic makes a lot more sense.
I think that argument too right there. This is, if I sort of had to stamp like an Oasis song that I felt would be you, it would be this song. This is like, this sort of directly correlates itself with the way I look at some of the songs that you write and the attitude that you have behind those. So that makes sense to me. There is essences of like desert rock with what you do, but also punk rock too. And I think this song sort of maybe is before its time in terms of that perspective, but definitely right there with the punk scene. So
I think what's impressive is even though it is a punk song, it is very much them.
Yes.
Like in other words, it could have sounded totally like, oh God, they're trying to do punk and they can't pull it off. But I don't know if they ever did anything that punky again. I mean, I'm trying to think of what's the story of Morning Glory. Like Morning Glory is rock. Hello is rock. They don't do punk again.
They could have taken the the genre that they were going for in that moment and leaned way too far into it.
Exactly.
I think they stuck to their proverbial guns with being who they knew they are and were, while still giving a nod, if you will, to what they were going for. So, I enjoy it heavily. I just, we're talking tracks here, and this was a difficult one, top to bottom. So
I'll say that one other punky song they have is "Fade Away."
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the master plan, and it was a B-side from this era. And that's got punk, but the lyrics are actually kind of like I don't know, childlike and fun. And this one has got that anger that a punk song would have. So, all right, we move on here to the 8th track of the album, and we have some personal history with this: Cigarettes and Alcohol. Now, back in 2009. There was a farewell concert of sorts for the band that we had in college, and that was an offshoot of a band we had in high school. So our buddy Nate, who will be, we hope to do a podcast with him after we all see the show in Chicago. He was going to be in town as he was going to school at Michigan State, and he was going to be in town and asked if he could come on and do a song. And we said, sure. And he mentioned Cigarettes and Alcohol by Oasis. I didn't know this song. So I download it on what would have been LimeWire or something back then. And I think, like it's an okay song, but Ben, you know this very well. Who is one of my favorite British bands of all time?
T-Rex, and there's no denying the vibe of this song and how it hits. So if you've never dove into T-Rex before, go for it.
I could not extricate myself from Bang a Gong. And then you realize, okay, well, there's more to this song than that. And Nate, and I'll never forget it because like I sang in that band, but he took Mike for that, and he did Liam all the way down to his hands behind his back. And Nate is 6'3", so he has to really get down to get to the microphone that my 5'10", not quite 5'11" height can reach. and he was doing the full on Liam thing as we played Cigarettes and Alcohol at the Civilian Farewell Show in 2009. And he did a bang up job of it, I will say.
Yeah, I think all around. Obviously, Kenton was actually Kenton was in Spain. If you remember that show, wasn't he? Seen Spain?
He was in Spain for the '08 show, the first Civilian show.
That's right.
I feel like Kent might have done a couple songs with this.
Yeah, I've forgotten this then. I think there's pictures, so you're right. But
I think he did Where to Go From Here.
Getting mixed up.
Yeah. But no, yeah. So Nate comes on and sings this with us. I mean, this song was the fourth and final single from Definitely Maybe. And it is, as the title would suggest, about cigarettes and alcohol. But there is more to it. So not to, again, say that Oasis is political or social aware, I mean, necessarily, but kind of like Bring It On Down, is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for? I mean, of a time and a place. These guys are from Manchester. This resonates in 1994.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about some of the deliveries, in Colombia and stuff from Liam, and how it just adds to, I guess, the way that songs will concrete themselves into your brain. But from imagination to action,
sunshine
to situation.
Dude, we are going to be leaning so heavily into that on the field. I mean, if they play cigarettes and alcohol.
Sure. No. There's certain songs you're going to hear. But this is one where, again, dude, if you're singing it, is it my imagination? What are we doing here? Like, it's not Oasis. That's not what this song is. And the delivery is its own instrument. Like, I'm going to probably say that 1,000 times over in this mini series on how impactful it is. But the incredible thing here is it's easy for us to talk about this now in 2025 after historically everything that's gone into this from a 1994 release. But again, if you could put yourself in the shoes of hearing this for the first time, as it was released, and you're thinking, is this a super group? How have I not heard of these guys before? Like, who are they? What is this about? And this is a well-formulated front man at this point, right? So, like, Noel, I haven't really taken a deep enough dive to understand, like, any coachability behind delivery of lyrics. I know who wrote them, right? But if you're telling me that he was also like, Liam, listen, I need you to deliver imagination like this. Don't know if that happened.
No. He when he did Sunshine, they were like, oh, that's it.
That's just Liam. That. Yeah. So that's the point right there that I'm trying to make, is that when lightning strikes, I don't necessarily, because these are great. It's not, it's in the writing, but also it's in the delivery. And so this song, to me, beyond even Columbia, is one where I'm like, it sticks the landing every single time, and like almost over delivers every single time, because I'm trying to replicate it as I'm, again, driving or mowing the lawn or something. And it's like, God, man, just so good. Good.
You're in no Oasis mode, so there's no spoiler I'm about to deliver, but I will say, this is going to be somewhere in the set list, right? And what they have found with this song on this tour, and a cool wrinkle with it, is a highlight. I mean, and I think what it shows is somehow the song, which is kind of like a dead end life, all I need is cigarettes and alcohol. It's both, on one hand, like, life, it's not really going anywhere. But hey, like Noel said, I wake up every morning. I don't know where the night's going to take me. Like, that's enough, and cigarettes and alcohol. Like, even if that's it and that's all you have, it's still something. So I don't know. This song, I didn't get it when Nate played with it. I was happy to have Nate on stage with us, and that made me appreciate the song a bit more. But then to listen to live versions in particular, and hear entire stadiums worth of people singing along to it and how much it means to them. It's not just some glib song about like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's much more than that. So I think that's cool.
Yeah,
and I appreciate it.
I've been throwing around the idea for weeks. I'm trying to figure out if I want to make like a t-shirt for the show on the 28th, and the line that I keep going back to, which is not a spoiler, this is not my killer line, but you spend your days in the sunshine, you might as well do the white line. Like if you were walking past somebody and that's on the back of their t-shirt, you're like, fuck yeah, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh yeah,
these are just great, and it's just so fun, dude. I think at the end of the day,
that's
like
it. It's
as
fun.
as pompous and as pompous and upfront with who they are, what they wanted, as these guys are, there is zero essence of no fun here. It's all fun.
It's all
right?
fun
From top to bottom. So
yeah. Even when it gets melancholic, it's still like, listen, that's life, and it's okay to be melancholic. You're gonna be fine. It's all
100%.
good, man. Let's go have some fun. All right. We move on to another fun song, and you can call it a joke and call it whatever you want to. Digsy's Dinner.
Gotta be careful here. Really ruffled some feathers with Boogie with Stu, so I don't want to go too deep. But no,
Here's the thing. We talk about, yeah, that's right. For Oasis fans first tuning in, Ben put Boogie with Stu as his least favorite track on Physical Graffiti, and the Led Zeppelin Reddit made sure to call him a heretic for it. So, but that happens. I like Boogie with Stu. I like Digsy's Dinner. I thought it was Diner for a long time. You're going to see some shirts. I guarantee it. In Soldier Field, we will see shirts that just say lasagna. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So this song has a special place. But I think here's the thing, Ben. This is when filler works, when it knows what it is. And it doesn't try to be anything else. And this is a song that is not trying to be masterpiece. It's 2 minutes, 40 seconds of kind of rollicking good time. And it's about lasagna. I don't know. I don't have a lot for it, but I enjoy it when I listen to it.
Yeah, and well, it's named after a dear friend of Noel's, Peter Deary. No pun intended, saying dear friend, but Peter Deary. He was also the lead singer of a band called Cook the Books in the 1980s.
Cook the Books
in the 1980s. So it was sort of a nod to him, and in ways an inspiration to Digsy's Dinner, because his nickname was Digsy. So yeah, and here's the thing. For both listeners alike, as we release these, and people aren't going to go all the way into the multi-hour listening of us rambling on and on about this type of thing, they're going to look at our ranking image and they're going to see exactly where we put these things. It's no secret to the Reddit world. People have been doing it for years and years and years. They're going to see Digsy's Dinner, and I'm giving a bit of a spoiler away here, somewhere in the bottom half of our rankings.
Yes.
Not even going to say last. It's going to be somewhere down there, and we're going to get chewed out for it. But you have to realize the tracks that precede it and the fact that this album, for all intents and purposes, is a perfect album. So we're not saying that we're shitting on these songs that we put down there, but this one, amongst all the others on this album that would be considered filler, are of my least favorite ones that appear. And it's really for no other reason than there's just some incredible tracks that precede it. So,
well, let's move on to one of those incredible tracks, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Slide Away. In an album full of just heavy hitters. I mean, just one after the other. Digsy's Dinner, again, palate cleanser. You kind of need it after a heavy hitter like Cigarettes and Alcohol. It's like they wrote a set list. A good track list are kind of like set list at a concert, and this feels like it. So Slide Away is the 10th of 11 tracks, and it is essentially a love song with a lot of melancholy. It's almost like Noel knew when he was writing it for his girlfriend, Louise Jones. Yeah, this isn't going to work. I know it. I hate that it's not going to work. But, and I wish that we could slide away. But, ultimately, I think what's so cool about this song, and some of my favorite songs are the ones that kind of marry either happy music with sad lyrics or sad music with happy lyrics. And this song is one of the latter. It's like the chord progression is kind of melancholic. It's minor key, and it rocks for what it is. But then the lyrics are ultimately hopeful. I love that juxtaposition and what it does, and even the title, Slide Away. Okay, well, Slide Away, is that a good or bad thing? I don't know. It's not Fly Away, which Lenny Kravitz so shittily did in the mid-'90s, but do you like Fly Away? I don't mean to shit on Lenny Kravitz,
but it's probably part of a KB top 10 for sure, but I wouldn't say that I I'm in love with it.
Yeah, it's kind of trite, but Slide Away is not trite. Do you have any personal connection with this song? I mean, I know that as the year has gone on, and I find that there's certain tracks I'm going back to. This it's a long list for Oasis tracks, especially the first two albums. This is one of those that has staying power, major staying power.
Yeah, for forever and always for me, and I see both halves. I described this during Zeppelin, and for me, I am not one that would sit there with an album sleeve or a cassette sleeve and read top to bottom to the lyrics like yourself for early albums that you would get into. I would sort of let the music fall over me like a waterfall and just like listen, and I would mishear lyrics all the time. I still do. I just sort of take it at face value for how the actual cosmic level of the song makes me feel. And this one was both deep in meaning, but not literal in the essence of what he was going through in terms of like this breakup or anything. I always took it as like more of a cheery song that just kind of had deep undertones. So sort of what it is. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, but I can't even put my finger on it, man. There's a lot of these songs that I can't put my finger on, and I think there's purpose behind that. I fell in love with this song initially because I sort of felt special. I felt like this wasn't going to be one that was going to be like a fan favorite. And back then, it's not like you were online or you were conversing with friends of yours at school that were on Facebook and shit.
Oh, this is a great track. Yeah.
When you fucking heard something, you sort of felt like you had ownership over it. And then like if you're at school in a conversation and you bring up this song, 9 times out of 10, people are like, "What? It's not Wonderwall. It's not." Any of these other songs. And when I came back from What's the Story, Morning Glory to this album initially, this was one that like captured me hook, line, and sinker right off the bat. And again, I sort of thought because of my knowledge of the band and what was going on back then that I was quote unquote special because I was like taking a deeper track from what wasn't one of what I thought was the massive ones back then. Little did I know that it was. So
no, it's sort of like when we talk about Dave, I'm like, Pig. Yeah, that's top 5, because I'm a Dave fan. So back then, yeah, of course, without message boards or subreddits or things like that, and you find a song that's not on 107.1, which for those listening, that was our alt rock station back then. It's not Champagne Supernova. It's something from the first album, deep in the album track listing. Yeah, I don't even know why. I mean, I listened to this and lyrically, the "We'll Find a Way," that sounds in and of itself like optimistic, and yet for some reason, despite the chorus being major key and uplifting sounding, I don't know if it's because I know the background to it now or the fact that, I mean, from the intro, it suggests like this thing's not going to work. I don't know why. I mean, to me, it sounds very much like a breakup track, even though they hadn't broken up, I don't think, when he wrote it. The other thing, too, that really, I think, sets it apart is the outro. I don't know. I don't care. All I want is you to take me there, which to me, it was, that I'm more of a music than lyric guy, right? You know that. Lyrically, that right there suggests that, like, I know this isn't going to work. I just want it to. I want you to take me there. Even though I don't know and I don't care. Like, I don't know that this is actually the right thing, but I want you to do it anyway. So there's this sort of helplessness in the face of love and knowing that it's probably doomed to not work. And I'm probably projecting too much onto it and maybe thinking about like, God, if I had listened to this shit instead of like Kid A back in my dark days when you and I lived in the same apartment and I'm like going through relationship turmoil, this song would have not made me feel any better. It would not have. It would have been like, I want to sing this to my doomed relationship, knowing it's not going to work. That's how I always have interpreted this song.
Yeah, it's brutally honest if you dissect it, and just eloquent in the way that he was able to put this on paper, because I think it's something that most guys and girls alike have probably experienced in terms of just like inherently knowing deep down in your gut that even if it's not a relationship, anything isn't necessarily going to pan out, but that, you know, you're still giving it time and you're understanding the beauty behind it in the moment, which just adds to the song. But just like total face value, surface level, from the lyrical delivery to the sonic vibes of the music itself, it's like a delivery from top to bottom that just fucking captured me. Like I said, hook, line, and sinker. Um, and I don't know if I ever really looked into the deeper half of what the song was alluding to. So
this is played and sung with so much conviction.
mm-hmm.
I mean, they believe what they're playing, and Liam believes what he's singing.
Sure.
So that's real. I mean, and the whole album's that way, but this one seems like they performed it with some extra oomph, and it is the one track from their January session that survived. So I think that says something. It was like they, out of all the other tracks, they didn't play any of those quite well enough. It didn't capture it. This one somehow did. So it seemed to always be with them. All right, we got one last track here, and we can go fairly quick on this. No slight to Married with Children, but that's the name of the song, Married with Children. Very kind of sarcastic look at an annoying partner that you live with, and recorded on a cheap 8-track thing in Mark Coyle, their sound guy's apartment. And we talked in the Led Zeppelin series. Hats off to Roy Harper, is the closer of Led Zeppelin 3. And I don't enjoy it particularly, but I appreciate its role as an album closer on that album. Kind of the same thing goes for this. Like, I don't, all that said, though, when I was setting up my classroom today, because I'm about to go back to teach school this year, your music shy to kiss me up all night, up all night. Like, I did have this song in my head. So it works in that regard, and it is kind of funny, but you know, it's a lighthearted way to end the album, I guess.
Yeah, and I've always taken it a different direction. I've heard it, and it reminds me equal parts. Like as I'm listening to it, I'm in the basement of Nate's parents' house in Cherry Hills. There's a massive ping pong table. There's cold beer in the fridge. We're not quite yet old enough to be indulging in it, but we are at the same time. We're not going anywhere. We're at the house for the night. Our shoes are off. They're probably up by the front door. You know what I mean? So like we're respecting this house, but we're also sort of trying to be on the reckless side of things as we're just like a group of, you know, young gentlemen surrounding a ping pong table, either playing beer pong or actual ping pong itself. And the opening lick to this song gets me every single time, and it takes me right back there. And then just the simplicity of it. I go the opposite direction. I am never offended that this is ending this album. I think it perfectly wraps it up, and it wraps it up in a way that you aren't really imagining whenever you think about the fact that it kicked off with Rock and Roll Star. And it's also one where, again, I tell you that I'm not really usually into remembering songs lyric for lyric, but I could sing this a cappella from top to bottom. So
there you go.
It is what it is, man. To each their own, but I think it's clever and short enough that it just puts a perfect exclamation point on the debut album. And obviously, for most out there that would be listening to this podcast anyway, you know what comes next. And it does the trick and leaves you, as it should, wondering, are we going to get any more from these guys? And if so, what's going to come after this? So,
and little did they know. Though I think this album, if anything, it teed up what was to come, and we're going to talk about that next week. But all right, so before we get to our spiciest biscuit picks, a quick thing about reception, critical and commercial. This was a massive success right off the bat. I mean, it was released on August 29th, 1994, and pretty much immediately from the rock press in England, it was known to be a really big deal. I have some... let's see here, a few clippings here that I'll read from some of the places back then. In New Music Express, Keith Cameron called the Noel Gallagher, quote, a pop craftsman in the classic tradition and a master of his trade. Quote, the only equivocal thing about Definitely Maybe is its title. Everything else screams certainty. The fact is that too much heartfelt emotion and genius belief in patent songwriting savvy rushes through the debut Oasis album for it to be the work of a bunch of wind-up merchants. It's like opening your bedroom curtains one morning and discovering that some fuckers built the Taj Mahal in your back garden and then filled it with your favorite flavor of Angel Delight. Damn. I thought the imagery of opening your drapes in the morning, that alone right there, or to me, this album is very much like Rock and Roll Star starts, and to me, I'm on the on-ramp to the interstate, and then right when everybody crashes in, I'm on the interstate, and I'm going 80, right? Praise all around. 100,000 copies sold in its first week in the UK. Number one album. It replaced the Three Tenors in Concert, 1994. Can you name, other than Luciano Pavarotti, the other two tenors?
No.
I can't either. I can't. But they're good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Over 15 million copies have been sold worldwide since its release. It was ranked the best album ever by New Music Express's reader poll in 2006. The magazine writers themselves voted it number 3 behind the Stone Roses debut and the Smiths' The Queen is Dead. The Smiths were fronted by Morrissey back in the day. In Q, another British magazine, number 1 British album in Q's 2008 list. In Spin magazine, 2015, it was in their best 300 albums from 1985 to present. Rolling Stone listed it 217, area code. Number 217 out of 500 in their 2020 list.
Wow.
I could read other clippings here, but basically, it was a smashing success. And it was, from the get-go, it was a classic. Now, what's going to be really interesting next week is when we talk about the initial reaction to What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yeah.
We consider, I think, that to be every bit the album this is, and yet not immediately.
Yeah. I'm just disappointed that Lester Bangs died in 82, so we couldn't get a feel for what his takeaway of this band would have been.
What do you think he would have thought about them? I think as a contrary, I think he would
I got to be honest, man.
Them.
I think the abruptness and abrasiveness of what was happening during this time around the rest of the world, that this would have been one where he would have latched onto it. I truly do. I think this would have been something he would have been proud to endorse. That's just my takeaway. I think he would have felt at the forefront of endorsing them, if that makes sense, as opposed to feeling like he needed to.
I think that he appreciated authenticity, which is why Zeppelin, because they were kind of taking from like black music, especially, he wasn't 100% convinced of their authenticity or that they were really being earnest about what they wanted to do. Oasis certainly was. I mean, you can not like this music, but you can't say that they don't believe what they're playing. So I think that he ultimately would have, I agree. I think he would have liked it.
Yeah. I mean, he was clearly a huge Iggy Pop fan and, fan of the Stooges. I think that he just feeds on that, like you said, authenticity. And I think he would have dug it. So all that said, should we mosey into our fateful rankings?
Spiciest Biscuit rankings. So here's how these categories work. We are going to alternate back and forth between a few categories, and then ultimately we are going to give our Spiciest Biscuit rankings, which means from tracks 1 through 11, we're going to rank them from what we consider worst to best. So Dustiest, Crumpet, all the way to Spiciest Biscuit. But before we do that, Ben, we have a few categories to get through first. The first one that we need to get to is Killer Line. Here's this category. It's basically the mix of the best lyrics / delivery on the album, and boy, are there a lot to choose from. Who would you like to do the honors first?
I'll go ahead, if you don't mind. And I sort of already spoiled this in a way, but for me, the Killer Line is coming from Columbia.
Okay.
There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing the same to me. And then obviously I continued on with I Can't Tell You the Way I Feel.
Because the way I feel
is also new to me. And I'm like, man, those, again, two things there. Number one, the delivery of the setup for what ends up being a very deep lyric, in my opinion. I can't tell you the way I feel, because the way I feel is oh so new to me. It's like I'm 39 years old. I have that same feeling almost every single day with work, with my kids, with everything else, right? It's like that's a perfect description to life, I think, in a weird way.
There we were, now here we are.
But then his delivery for "There we were, now here we are" is an instrument, and it is so perfectly done to hook you in the description of a fishing angler. It's like that landed you, and then the sinker, so to speak, is the deep seated meaning behind the next line. So that's where I'm at with Columbia.
Dig it. All right, my killer line: I need to be myself. I can't be no one else. That's fucking it.
Can't beat it.
That's it.
Can't beat it.
And you know what's so funny is that the rest of the song, I'm feeling supersonic, give me gin and tonic. Okay, so that's still talking about me, but then there's other surrealistic lyrics that don't match that opening salvo, but the opening salvo is so good that it just kind of permeates the rest of the song. So I need to be myself. I can't be no one else. I think we each, listen, it's a murderer's row of lyrics. All right, the next one is alternative album title. I'll start with this one. I'm sticking with the theme of the lyric, Supersonic. I think that title would apply to this because of just how loud and different and brash it is. And Supersonic is just, it's a great song title. I think that occasionally with alternative album titles, I'll pick a song from the track list that would kind of encompass all of it. And I think that though that word, it conjures up so much of what this album delivers. So it's not the most creative. I was trying to think of maybe a Mancunian sort of thing that I could put out there, like Mad for It. I don't know. But instead, I just went with the song title. Supersonic, title track, if it were the alternative album title.
I enjoy that you actually did that, because for me, and I'm not cheating here, I have been going 12 rounds with trying to figure out what to do here for an alternative title. And I promise you that with every album of theirs post this one, I have like pretty much locked in what they're going to be. I cannot rename this album. This album to me is perfectly titled.
Yeah.
And I don't want to try to give it an alternative title. And I don't feel that's cheating. I literally have here in my notes with an exclamation point, I can't, because I just could not. I
I'll
tried.
Put that on the image. I can't.
I literally cannot, man. I tried, and I'm like, it's
how many exclamation points? 3?
3. And it's just so perfectly titled, man, that it's like, we talk about it. We talked about it through Zeppelin, and it's like sometimes things just work. And when you read them, like definitely maybe. I never sat down and said definitely maybe. Definitely maybe. It just worked. And it worked so well 100%. That it just becomes its own thing. And it is Oasis, and it will be Oasis forever. And if anybody says definitely maybe without understanding that, the first thing in your head is like, do you mean to just do that? Like, or was that literally just off the top of your dome to say it? So it's just one of those things. And I couldn't, man. I tried. I was like, maybe I'll just track title it or do something else, but I couldn't come up with something clever enough that would equal, in my opinion, the level of what that title means. So
sure. Perfect. That's fine.
There you go.
Should we do an abbreviated MVP? It's Noel, right?
It's Noel, and it's impossible not to. Now, we've argued pretty much this whole podcast for Liam's delivery, and that can't be understated. If you need to put that in parentheses for all of those people that are just going to look at these rankings and tear us apart, it's not that we're saying that Liam was not present or amazing on this album, but the writing in its entirety and the brainchild of almost everything that has to do with the Oasis that we now know, and this album specifically, is the brainchild and the heart of Noel Gallagher. And gun to the head, there's no shot that I'm putting anybody else in that slot. So
I'll give love to Bonehead on the bar chord rhythm guitar playing to beat that sound up. I'll give Tony McCarroll his only Oasis album, and he did appear in Some Might Say, the single that was on What's the Story, Morning Glory. I think that he had some good moments as well in this, but I guess Digsy on bass guitar, fine. But no, it's Noel, and I think Liam will get his due. Don't worry. I think that's coming up, and I think he's great on this album. He does get better, I feel like. Okay, so we move on to side A, side B, and the way that we're going to do this is, while this was not a vinyl record release back in 1994, it was a CD release, so it's a little bit longer. We're going to call side A Rock and Roll Star through Columbia, and side B Supersonic through Married with Children. You do the honors here?
Sure. So
it's tough.
Side B is the clear champion, and for listeners of this miniseries that don't necessarily know my ranking system, it is based on my Dustiest Crumpet to Spiciest Biscuit. When you get up to the Spiciest Biscuit, obviously I am tagging right next to, say, track rank 1, which side of the album, quote unquote, side of the album it's on. So in the top 5 of my rankings, I have 3 Bs and 2 As, which gives B the nod. So side B.
I'm side A by a sliver. And by using the same metric you do, I probably shouldn't be. But I nonetheless give a slight edge to side A. The way I envision it is, if that were a 5-track EP, I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. I think those 5 tracks flow perfectly to one another. There's a couple of all-time classics in that, if not 2 or 3. So I'm going side A, but it's a marginal difference, which leads us to our Spiciest Biscuit ranking. So should I do the honors here?
Sure. You go first.
All right. The way it works is we go from worst to first. Now, before we start, let's make predictions. Go ahead and predict what you think will be my Dustiest Crumpet, lowest rated track, and my Spiciest Biscuit.
I think your Dustiest Crumpet will be Poor Digsy and His Dinner.
Yeah.
And I think your Spiciest Biscuit's going to be Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Okay. Should I predict yours?
Sure.
Or should I wait until before you?
Yeah, we'll wait till I go.
Okay.
You can do it.
Here we go. My Dustiest Crumpet, track 11 out of 11, is Married with Children. It's no slight to it. It's one of those albums where even the worst track is still one I listen to. And I've been singing along all day. So I don't do this as a punitive thing. It's just too many good tracks. 10 is Old Digsy. I like Digsy's Dinner. I think it's cute and fun, and if I heard it live, I'd enjoy it, but it's a throwaway track and they knew it, and that's okay. I think it serves the album well for what it is. Number 9, Up in the Sky. I like the Beatles. I like Oasis. I like the song Rain. I like Up in the Sky, but it's a really good filler track in my mind. Number 8, we'll see if this surprises you. Bring It On Down. Number 8. Don't hate it. I like it a lot. I just don't love it like some of the tracks I'm about to go with. Number 7 is Shakermaker. Has this sort of unique quality that I can't quite explain, but it's very hypnotic. I like it. Number 6, Rock and Roll Star. Number 5, Cigarettes and Alcohol. It did not make my top 4. And my top 4 here, Ben, I could have all given Spiciest Biscuit. I think these are all 10 out of 10 phenomenal. Number 4 is Columbia. I feel kind of bad only leaving it at number 4, but it's number 4. Number 3 is one that I labored over. Live Forever. It's a 10 out of 10. My number 2, Slide Away. My number 1, and the one I've listened to more than any Oasis song and continue to listen to more than any Oasis song, is and will probably always be Supersonic. That is my Spiciest Biscuit.
Love it. Well done, sir. I enjoy it. I feel you there. And you kind of gave away Married with Children. I just didn't really catch on to it in our last little.
Still good. I mean,
it's still good, but yeah. I in hindsight, as soon as you said it, I'm like, damn it, he sort of gave that to me like a softball, and I didn't take it. So
I was worried my killer line and naming the album Supersonic would give that away, but good. All right. If I were to predict, your Dustiest Crumpet is going to be Digsy's Dinner, and your spiciest biscuit will be Slide Away.
All right.
Okay.
Off to the races. So, ding, ding, ding. Digsy's Dinner. That poor chappie.
Yep.
Number 11. Number 10. Bring It On Down.
That's okay.
Number 9. Up in the Sky.
So we both have those two songs in our bottom few.
Yeah.
And it's, again, no slight to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Married with Children gets the number 8 nod. Like I said, I've got some feel good ties to that song, so cool. It rose to the occasion, if you will. We both had this at 7, Shakermaker. Love it, jams. Man, it's just what precedes these coming tracks. It's very difficult to put
this
that.
This is where it gets hard. Yeah.
Number 6, Rock and Roll Star. I think you and I were aligned on that as well.
Correct.
Number 5, Cigarettes and Alcohol. Number 4, Live Forever.
Okay. So, hey, real quick, we have the same top 4.
We do.
In different orders. So your 4 was Live Forever. I'm guessing your 3 is Supersonic?
Number 3 is Columbia.
Oh.
Number 2, Slide Away.
Wow.
Number 1 is Supersonic. And it's just, there's really no denying it. I mean,
it is undeniable.
I went back and forth, and I'll tell you where we're going to get eaten alive online. It's that Live Forever, beyond it literally meaning live forever, has been touted as most folks' reason they fell in love with Oasis, and the longest standing reason that they've continued to stick and love Oasis. I get that. I understand the monument that is that song. But for me, it always comes down to memory and feeling and what a song does to me in the moment. And like you, who has only recently sort of picked up the chops of Oasis, Supersonic has been there in the wings the entire time with me, and always delivers, over delivers, as do all these songs. But I just think about Slide Away. I think about Columbia. I think about Cigarettes and Alcohol. If you gave me those 4 tracks and the rest of Oasis's like catalog completely disappeared from my memory, I'd still be a happy camper. I wouldn't like it, but I would still be smitten, right? So like, to me, I had a pretty relative 5 that could just like live in eternity, and they would all be spicy biscuits.
Yeah.
But for the exercise here and what we do, we have to formulate a ranking, and that's what I did. Pretty wild that you and I both had Supersonic, I'll be honest, man, because like I don't really pay attention to these track rankings until I've already made my own. I don't want to have like any influence on, you know, what the masses are saying. But after I do so, I obviously sort of take to Reddit and Google and see what other folks have done and placed and where things lie. And I'll tell you, this album specifically, dude, is goddamn all over the place.
But like, we were remarkably close.
Yeah, very close.
I mean, dude, we had the same 765, Shakermaker, Rock and Roll Star, Cigarettes and Alcohol, and we both agree. And you have more of a top 5 than a top 4. And I would argue that, yeah, I'd probably slot Cigarettes and Alcohol up there close to 10 out of 10 status. I mean, it's Rock and Roll Star, as much as I love it, I could say 10 out of 10, but like, I think it's like a 9.5. Like, it's really good, but it's just a slight notch below some of those others. We were close.
What surprises me is your nod to side A, though. Where I do agree, it's a killer side A.
You know why? Because I find Married with Children and Digsy's Dinner to be noticeably weaker. So to me, those 2 tracks docked it enough. Now, if you were to say, what would you replace it with? From their B-sides, God, was Whatever was back then. I guess, though, that might have been recorded right after Definitely Maybe. I mean, there was Fade Away. That could have been one. I don't know. I mean, we're going to get to the master plan, and I'll have a better idea of the dates, but they had a wealth of B-sides. At the same time, though, while those songs are not my favorite, I think they work on the album. I mean, something had to be 11th. Something had to be 10th. It's no slight to those songs. And I think sometimes with albums, not everything can and not everything should be a masterpiece. Like there should be songs that serve a different purpose. So I am not shitting on those songs.
For sure. I need to revisit it too because again, in the last week, I've sort of looked stuff up, and there's things that I would have never taken a deep dive into had it not been for this podcast. But there's a couple tracks that I guess were up on the docket to make the album. Listen Up and Cloudburst. I've never heard of Cloudburst.
Listen Up is great.
And then whatever, like you just mentioned, was also up there. So
I mean, whatever is kind of a classic Oasis song.
Yeah.
But at the same time, does it fit here? I mean, can you end the album with whatever? Because to me, that sounds much more like a song you get from What's the Story, Morning Glory. I don't think it would have fit. Married with Children, I think is a better fit.
Yeah.
For this album and the attitude of this album. So I think it was a strong choice.
Yep.
Man, we're one down, and that was a big kahuna.
Yeah, and 220. We were always pushing closer to 3 with Zeppelin, so this will flow.
Yeah.
And for listeners, there was a lot of preliminary discussion with Oasis versus no Oasis, and setting ourselves up for this one. But this is going to be fun, man. I cannot stress enough the ensuing excitement. It goes beyond what I experienced today, knowing that we're back. And for listeners, we took a 3-week hiatus.
Yeah.
Sort of.
And we'll do that between series.
Both intentionally and unintentionally to be at the 3-week mark. I think we were pushing more for like a 2-week hiatus for travel and end of summer stuff. But the anticipation that's been rising over the past 3 or 4 days, where the Nebworth is getting some rounds in the drives to and from work. And then my son Brooks, he's 2, ripe age of 2, but he is so enthralled in real life television, unlike his sister who's 4, who loves all things animated. He has been into like the Broadway version of Frozen. He has been into Heavyweights, Sandlot, Rookie of the Year. So like, dude, if it's in like any capacity of like real humans being on TV, he'll sit there and watch it for a couple hours. So yesterday, while Collins, my daughter, is at swim class or dance class. Sorry, yesterday was dance, man. It's already starting. All these repetitions.
Stuff straight.
She's at dance class yesterday evening, and Brooks and I are home. We're starting dinner, and we go plop on the couch, and I throw on Supersonic, and like I sent you guys a video, but he's like in my arms with his legs crossed, and he was as dedicated to watching it. Like obviously not necessarily understanding much of what's going on, but they scored that documentary great too. So he's all into music and everything else. So we're just sitting there watching. It's just one of those moments where I'm like, this is like one of those times in life where I'm going to look back, hopefully, knock on wood, 20 years from now and be like, you know what? Like Oasis came back. Me and all the guys I grew up with went to Soldier Field August 28th, 2025 to see them. And I'll be able to look back at Brooks and Collins and be like, when you were only 2 as I was gearing up for this show at Soldier Field, and there's a high possibility these guys are still going to be going when he's old enough to make some freaking shows.
I think there's
fall in love with him too. So
yeah, I think that if this were one off, that'd be enough. I'm not so convinced of that now, and it's cool to be doing this podcast and this series in particular to coincide with the fact that we're about to see these guys,
right?
And it's more than just seeing a concert. It's being part of something that is really resonating with people. And listen, we're not a political podcast. We're not going to do that. But like the world, I don't know if you noticed, there's a lot of things going on in the world. There's a lot of shit. And yet
I'm happy you're saying this, because this is going to sound like a virtue, but in my opinion, what perfect timing. The fucking world needs this right now, dude.
Yes.
Like, I don't mean to get that deep, but man, come on. So true. Like, just like we needed Rage Against the Machine a couple of years ago, and I don't think, just given the instance of what happened to us and the world live at United Center, randomly enough, when Zach went down and broke his ankle, that the world got enough of that.
Towards Achilles,
sorry. Yeah. Achilles. I think they were on their way to do a very similar thing, where they were going to be really, 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 really incessant on what they were about to do and the message that they were going to bring. And then that happened, and then some other things with the band as well, with Tom and
they just don't like each other.
They just don't. At the end of the day, Oasis has, not that I've researched it, but I do understand that there's this present cloud and movement that is coming, and it is hitting people both young, middle-aged, and older that have been fans of Oasis for as long as they can remember, and it's not coming at a time where it's going to be what's the word I'm looking for? Nostalgic. It's not. And that's what I was worried about. Mm-hmm. Like, right as these things happened and we heard that they might be coming back, I was for a moment worried that it was just going to be kind of like a momentary blip of nostalgia. And when that didn't hit or didn't take, the brothers are going to be pissed off enough that they weren't even going to make it over to the US. I don't think it's that. I think it's they're going to be more powerful probably than they ever have been. And they're also going to be unveiling themselves to a whole new generation of Oasis fans that are now going to catch the bug and go through the catalog and such just like that. So it's crazy, man. What a crazy ass time to be alive. And we also get to do something on this podcast that we definitely didn't get to do with Led Zeppelin, coming off of a live show, which is going to be inviting hopefully a good friend of ours, Nate Stein, to join us and do kind of a bonus episode of a reaction. We can go through that track listing, which, I'll be pumped to do because then I'll finally see it and have heard it. And we can kind of do a similar fashion where we'll do like a bonus ranking and all this other fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the last thing I'll leave you with is there was a rock critic who went to one of the Wembley shows and said it was the best stadium rock concert they'd ever been to. And what they were talking about is, yes, the concert itself was that good. But he talked about how the vibe in the place, he said, it's 70,000 plus people at Wembley, and yet it felt like a cozy pub. So you basically have strangers hugging strangers. You have people in the concourses buying beers for people they've never met before. And it's just, and the age range and everything. Like it was like family reunion or something, except most of these people didn't know each other, but they felt like family anyway. Mm-hmm. So to me, I don't think we're going to get quite that same impact in Chicago just because Oasis is so entrenched in British culture. But I do think that the crazy amount of people that wanted this show, we saw on Ticketmaster, like I didn't get tickets because I was 80,000 in the queue and my wife was like 170,000. So this was still a big deal here. I think those that make their way in the stadium are going to be people that really want to be there. And that when they do, they're going to want to adopt the same things that we've seen through YouTube and reading through clips and stuff and Instagram and TikTok stories. Oh, this is how they did the Oasis shows over there. We need to bring some of that here because there's something special going on. So yeah, the world needs it. Rock music needs it. It is invigorating to see a guitar-based rock band that just has great songs being at the top of the world right now. And what timing? So yeah. Here we are.
Can we just really quick talk about that too? Because I know that we sort of teed it up in the very early iterations, and you just mentioned it too. But the ticket journey, really quickly to wrap this up, we got just a couple minutes left. We'll stick here, but leading into that release date was October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, September, October, I forget.
October. I was in Navarre Beach, Florida, with my in-laws, my wife, my two kids. Day before, I'm looking at my work calendar. I've got a stacked day, top to bottom. I know what is happening at 10 a.m. that morning when this Ticketmaster blip of the globe is happening, and we all do. So we're sort of like, I don't know, if we were all together, it would be like a locker room. Like we're sort of like, we'd be punching each other's shoulders and stuff like, you ready? You ready? You got to get prepared. And we even had Kyle like fully engaged in terms of, you are logged into your Ticketmaster account. There's no funny business. We literally have to divide and conquer this because the likelihood that 12 people or 10 people or 8 people, 7 people are going to be able to capture the amount of tickets that we need at 4 tickets per person will hopefully work itself out.
Yep.
So I'm on a meeting that is client facing, right? Mike Murphy, if you listen to this, I love you. Everything worked out, but had to make this happen. So I sort of get done with my spiel. I take myself off camera, pick up my cell phone, 9:59 on the dot, right? I see myself enter the queue, and in our group chat, everyone is firing off on what positions they are. Shit. 60,000, like 65,000, 170,000, whatever. I look at mine and I'm 2,600. So I'm like, and I'm not even talking to you guys because I was so worried that I was going to lose the queue or something was going to happen. Like I was physically shaking when I saw 2600. Like no exaggeration. And my hands were shaking. I was so nervous that like that I might be the only one to get 4 tickets was my perspective. So I hop in. I knew we were going directly for GA. I get my opportunity. I capture the tickets. I jump in, and it was so quick for me that it all happened that you didn't even catch it in the group chat when I sent the screenshot of my tickets confirmed. So we trudge on. We end up getting the exact number of tickets that we need for each of us, and then these spouses that were going or are going. Kara with you, and at the time Carla with Matt, so on and so forth. Now the funny part about it, and I'll wrap my spiel up here with this journey, is that I think all in tickets came out to like $238 a person on release day on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And, Nates were spoken for at that moment with Dave, and we had the consolidation all worked out in that moment. But fast forward to 2 weekends ago, I was in Asheville for a bachelor party, and two of my buddies, my fraternity brothers, Landon and Sandeep, both are huge and lifelong Oasis fans as well, were discussing trying to make it up to Soldier Field in the living room, and I overheard them talking. So I sort of pull up my Ticketmaster app and I floated over to them, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? You have tickets for this? Like, when'd you get them?" And I just went through the same story I told you. So they get online and they're trying to find tickets that would be manageable for them to get. And the lowest to this day, literally checked on them today and asked them if their journey was going any easier. They're like, "Man, the cheapest singular ticket that we found just to get in the building was $850."
Holy shit!
Yeah, we literally, when I say right time, right place, lightning strikes, I don't know in what world we didn't get lucky, because we scooped 12 tickets like it was absolutely nothing, and it was done within 15 minutes, and we're all back to work and doing our thing on this random Tuesday. So
I mean, I saw a day or two later was a home football tailgate, and Kyle was there, who's not Ticketmaster adept. I've done it a million times. He's done it twice, and one time he totally fucked it up. And this time he gets 4 seats.
Yeah,
like good seats. And I was like, Kyle, you son of a bitch. God, I love you, man. Like, I'm so proud of you right now. Like, yeah, it's luck, but at the same time, you got to be Johnny on the spot. So we got lucky. We are over the moon that we get to be part of this, and it's going to be a special night. What's been a special tour so far. So
for listeners,
go ahead.
Listeners, I just don't know if, I'm sure listeners have for sure, but I try to explain to my wife, it's like the anxiety, the ensued anxiety that happens in that moment when you're like, would we be able to get in? The answer is yes. Like, I would have paid, and we've talked about this over the past 20 years. Like, I thought there'd be no world where we would get to see them on US soil. So I thought it meant if they ever come back, we are going to be getting a flight. We're going to be getting lodging. We're going to be going to see them in England, and it's probably going to cost me at the very least $5,000 to $6,000 like total, because I'm going to have to get international flights. I'm going to probably pay $1,000 to get in whatever door I'm going to. Little did I know that everything would fall in our lap and that we'd be doing it for a relatively budget friendly way in the US, so to speak. But yeah, the anxiety that ensued from that moment on. She's like, "Did you get them?" And she kind of shrugged it off like, "It's a concert, right?" I was like, "Yeah, but Emily, if we wouldn't have landed these tickets at release time in the moment, right now, if you go on and try to find these tickets, they are 10x the cost of what we just bought them for." So like, I could have gone, but it would have been at the, detriment of our family funds and so forth.
No more dance lessons for Collins.
Boy, oh boy, no doubt. So,
all right, last thing before we leave here, predict what Definitely Maybe songs make it into the Live 25 set list. Mr. Noasis, what do you think?
Cigarettes and Alcohol.
Okay.
Live Forever.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm marking these down. I'm not confirming or denying.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Supersonic.
Okay.
Slide Away.
That's 4.
Let's see. I said Supersonic, Slide Away, Live Forever.
Cigarettes and Alcohol. That's 4.
Okay. I've got a feeling Rock and Roll Star will make the cut.
Okay.
I don't know about Shakermaker. That's a question mark. And obviously, I've mentioned it. I don't think we're going to get this, just for the record. But if for some reason magically we get lucky enough to hear Columbia live, wow. But I'm not even going to put that out there that's a guess, because I don't think it's going to happen. So
your predictions, the ones you think for sure, are Cigarettes and Alcohol, Live Forever, Supersonic, Slide Away, and Rock and Roll Star. You feel confident about those, and you have Shakermaker and Columbia as not sure.
Yep.
Okay, cool. We'll keep tracks on that. Keep tabs on that, excuse me. And the next week, we have What's the Story Morning Glory, and you can bet safely a decent number of those will be in the set list as well. But which ones?
All ones?
Right. That was a great start to the Oasis set. We have What's the Story Morning Glory next week. I'm excited for the one after that, too. Be Here Now, which has grown on me considerably. Master Plan after that. We will do a live 25 review, probably between Be Here Now and the Master Plan, and then end it with Heathen Chemistry, Don't Believe the Truth, and Dig Out Your Soul. I think I covered all the albums there.
You did.
There we go. All right. Do you want to sign us out? Do you remember what the takes are? It's not John Bonham's bass drum.
Yeah, you just got to give me 1 second here. Apologies, folks. Let me prepare myself.
I don't think I typed it in, though.
No, we're fine. We get it. 1 second. This is Drop the Needleheads with Schmiggy. That's me. Nope. Sorry.
That's me.
Start that
God
over
damn
again. See, God damn it. I'm just so used to hearing that. It is Drop the Needleheads with Schmiggy.
That's me.
And Yahtzee, that's me.
Oh.
The records spin, the bourbon flows, and in this case, the breakdowns are deeper than one-liners from Liam Gallagher. Every time I look in the mirror, God looks back.
Hell yeah. We'll see you next week. It is Drop the Needleheads.
See you.